Ottawa.
For local news in Ottawa and the Valley, this is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, January 12th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, it's minus 16 and Smiths Falls minus 7. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The Education Minister is set to make an announcement this afternoon on a return to in-person learning. This is 5 days before schools welcome back students, teachers, and staff amid the ongoing threat of the Omicron variant. From Queen's Park, here's City News reporter Kevin Meisner.
The Education Minister has been keeping a low profile of late, but he resurfaces today after word that Ontario students will return to class in person on Monday in Ontario. Stephen Lecce will be joined at 1:30 this afternoon by the Chief Medical Officer of Health to update the plan to reopen schools after 2 weeks of online learning and as Omicron continues to spread. Experts, of course, concerned about the level of absenteeism in schools because of Omicron. They say that teachers and students calling in sick will be the bigger challenge than actual infection rates. The CEO of Ontario Health doesn't expect opening schools to drive COVID cases higher in and of itself, however, does expect a much higher number of teachers and students to become infected in the community and then have to take time away from school. And covering off those teacher sick days and isolation requirements will be a challenge, not to mention the missed days for students, which will compromise their ability to keep up with their classmates when it comes to the education. Kevin Meisner, City News.
City News time 9:01, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
For Ottawa, the Valley, Smiths Falls, today quite a bit of cloud for most areas. Some flurries and a couple of centimeters could accumulate. The high near -1. Tonight, cloudy and -10. And for tomorrow, some flurries for the afternoon, the high -5. For today, gradually getting warmer, will climb to -1.
And right now in Ottawa, some light snow, -12, feels like -18, it's -6 in Smiths Falls. Now, with COVID-19 cases putting Canada's hospitals at or near capacity, Quebec's unprecedented plan to tax adult residents who refuse to be vaccinated is coming under fire.
The Canadian Civil Liberties Association says the tax plan is deeply troubling, noting the Charter of Rights and Freedoms recognizes individual autonomy over our bodies and medical decisions. In an emailed statement, the CCLA says the tax penalty is a divisive measure that will end up punishing and alienating those who may be in most need of public health supports and services. It calls on Quebec Premier François Legault's government to abandon what it calls a constitutionally vulnerable proposal. Quebec reported 2,742 COVID-related hospitalizations yesterday, with 255 patients in intensive care, along with another 62 deaths. Laurie Paris, The Canadian Press.
Now more on this coming up on the Rob Snow Show at 9:15. With all the attention Novak Djokovic is receiving down under, more measures for residents of Sydney today. They will now be fined if they don't tell the government they've received a positive COVID test result.
It's just the latest in a string of measures the government has imposed on its citizens. Regional leader Dominic Perrottet.
This health order has been signed off this morning, and in terms of enforcement, if someone fails to register a positive rapid antigen test, there will be a $1,000 fine.
That's $721. The rationale, he says, the registration process through an app would help health officials provide more support to people with underlying health conditions. Tom Rivers, ABC News at the Foreign Desk.
City News time 9:03. A message late yesterday afternoon on Twitter indicates the Rideau Canal Skateway will be opening soon. Crews have been busy prepping the surface for the 52nd annual opening of the skateway. They need at least 30 centimeters of ice thickness in the canal to safely open, and that means an extended stretch of very cold weather. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Say X,
he's got the Y.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
So I guess we've reached that point of the winter when we can say -13. That's not so bad. Good morning. Welcome to the Rob Snow Show on City News. Ooh, busy day around here. We have a lot of ground to cover over the next 3 hours and really one hot issue to get into, the anti-vax tax. That's up first. Quebec Premier François Legault boldly going where no premier has gone before with an anti-vax tax. If you're not vaccinated in the province of Quebec, you will soon have to pay a tax. Now, he doesn't call it a tax. Okay, and politicians, they don't like to use the word tax. They use the word price. They use the word premium, but they don't like to use the word tax because they know nobody likes paying taxes. So let's not call it a tax. So in this case, it's being called a contribution. I love that. It's a health contribution. A health contribution. But, is it legal? Is it constitutional? Is it ethical? We'll try and get some answers to those questions this morning. I'll tell you what, it's popular. It is popular. I don't think there's any question about that. There's been polling recently that would suggest most Canadians support a tax or a fine or a penalty for people who refuse to be vaccinated. So it's popular, and the Quebec Premier has a populist streak. But if this is the start, right, isn't this what the debate is about? If this is the start, where does it end? Right. Okay, so today it's the unvaccinated. You have to pay a tax, the unvaccinated. What is it tomorrow? Who is it tomorrow? The addicted? The type 2 diabetic? The adventure seeker, the risk taker? See, where does it end? It is the peak of the slippery slope, isn't it? All downhill from here. So, right off the top, since we're at the peak, we will get into the ethical issues of the anti-vax tax with a medical ethicist from the University of Toronto. That's coming up just a few minutes' time. And then there are the politics of it all. This is an election year in Quebec. And you have the politics of Quebec, which are always so interesting. I mean, the plain and simple fact is the Legault government's record on fighting COVID-19 over the last 2 years is awful. Among the worst in the country. The long-term care system in that province was as bad as anywhere else in the country. The province's healthcare system is the stuff of your worst nightmares. And you could make a solid case that this announcement about the anti-vax tax, it's nothing more than a political ploy, a diversion, an attempt to divert blame onto a group of people. In this case, the unvaccinated. They're being scapegoated. You could make a case. They're being scapegoated instead of the government, say, taking responsibility and apologizing for its own incompetence. It's not our fault that we're incompetent, that we've starved our healthcare system. It's their fault. It's those people. Quebec, once again, has the only curfew in the country during certain hour of the day, during certain hours of the day. It's illegal to leave your house. It's illegal to leave your house. It's lockdown measures right now as severe as any in the country. And aside from the pandemic, you have Bill 21, the so-called secularism bill. There's all of this. And yet, when the election in Quebec is held later this year, Premier François Legault and the CAQ, they're going to win. And they're going to win big. It's not even going to be close. His enduring popularity is the envy of just about every politician in the country. The man can do no wrong, even though on the pandemic, he's done very little right. We're going to talk about that. And what is Mr. Trudeau going to do? And what is Mr. Trudeau going to say? And Mr. Trudeau is going to have a news conference this morning. It's supposed to start at 11:30. If it starts on time, we hope to carry some of it live for you here on City News at 11:30. The anti-vax tax is so obviously against, if not the letter of the Canada Health Act, the spirit of the Canada Health Act. Healthcare in Canada is supposed to be barrier-free. Supposed to be. A lot of things are supposed to be. The healthcare you get in Canada isn't supposed to depend on your socioeconomic status. You and me, we're supposed to get the same healthcare as someone like Galen Weston. Healthcare in Canada is not supposed to depend on the kind of decisions that you've made in your life. Whether that's refusing to get a vaccine, smoking a pack a day, drinking a Mickey a day. The healthcare system is supposed to be there when you need it, no matter your lifestyle choices. So what are we going to hear from Prime Minister Trudeau today? Are we going to hear the same old Prime Minister Trudeau? It's Quebec. And we won't tell Quebec what to do because, federalism. Maybe, just maybe, he's in lockstep with the Premier's point of view. After all, it was just a few days ago that his own health minister was out promoting mandatory COVID-19 vaccinations for everyone, even though the federal government has no power to enact such a thing. 11:30, the Prime Minister, a news conference. Oh, we'll be paying close attention to what he has to say. And then we'll have to talk about Aaron O'Toole, the Conservative Party leader. It was just, about a week or so ago that Mr. O'Toole was being met with all sorts of backlash, blowback, because he said there should be reasonable accommodations made for the unvaccinated. Just how far outside of mainstream Canadian politics is that point of view these days? So every morning we score our political fix. We have a dynamic duo this morning with Susan Smith and Tim Powers, and they're standing by coming up right after the 9:30 news. In the middle of it all, there's the Talk Back Hour, and that's between 10 and 11 o'clock every morning here on the Rob Snow Show. It's your hour. It's a chance for you to express your own opinion. An hour of phone calls, an hour of opinion at 750-1310, 613-750-1310. And I certainly want to hear your opinion on this one this morning, the anti-vax tax. The anti-vax tax. Do you agree or disagree with this plan in Quebec to tax the unvaccinated? And the Premier said yesterday it will be significant. It will be significant. It's going to hurt. Hurt them where it matters most, I guess, in the pocketbook. It will be significant. So if you think that's the right thing to be doing, how much should the tax be? I want to remind you, there was a report recently from the Canadian Institute of Health Information, CIHI, Canadian Institute of Health Information. It said that on average, the cost to treat someone in a Canadian hospital, treat them for COVID-19, is $22,000, but that it climbs to $48,000 if the patient needs to be admitted to ICU. And for the last 3 months that there's data available, the cost to treat COVID-19 patients in Canadian hospitals was more than $600 million in 3 months. In 3 months. So you want to go after the unvaccinated and hit them where it hurts in the pocketbook. Just how much should you ding them for? A few $100? A few $1,000? Or the whole bill? If it costs $48,000 to heal a sick, unvaccinated person, do you send them the bill for the whole thing? And what do you do if they can't pay? Just how are you going to collect? Is Revenue Quebec going to put liens on properties, garnish wages, seize assets, and freeze bank accounts? It's kind of wild that we are at this point in time, that we're even talking about these sorts of measures. But here we are. Et bienvenue à la Rob Snow Show on City News.
On Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM.
And 1310 AM.
The Quebec Premier Francois Legault said yesterday he wants to impose a significant financial penalty on the small minority of Quebecers who still refuse to get vaccinated against COVID-19. This is a highlight from his news conference yesterday.
How do you expect to roll this out? There's going to be a lot of legal challenges to this, ethical challenges, whether someone can't afford it, they're unvaccinated, that's their choice. How are you going to manage this? This is a big deal.
Okay. Yes, it's a big deal. If you look at what's happening in other countries or other states, everybody is trying to find a solution, question of equity, because right now, these people, they put a very important burden on our healthcare network. And I think it's normal that the majority of the population is asking that there be a consequence. And yes, we will continue to look at spreading the use of the vaccine passport. But I think we have to go further. And I think that right now, it's a question also of fairness for the 90% of the population who made some sacrifices. I think we owe them this kind of measure.
Kerry Bowman is a bioethicist at the University of Toronto. Good morning.
Good morning.
What is your reaction to the announcement yesterday from the Premier of Quebec?
I'm not loving it. Let me sort of break it down a little bit. There's a line between what's punishment and what's encouragement or enticement, and this is very much on the other side of the line as I see it. It is a form of punishment. Yes, other countries are doing it, but first of all, we're not other countries. We are Canada, and so we have to find our own way with this. We also have very high vaccination rates. Like when you look to Greece and Austria, they actually don't. So there's quite a difference there. Here's another very practical point that worries me tremendously is the timeline with this. So absolutely, we have an Omicron crisis. Absolutely, our hospitals are under pressure that they've essentially never really seen before. But here's the thing. The unvaccinated, they haven't had their first dose yet, and that's why they're called unvaccinated. So let's look at the timeline. So if they get vaccinated a week from now or tomorrow because of this announcement, we're told with Omicron that first and second vaccines actually don't do much, and it's a third you need to go for. And even then, the data is still emerging. That is 6 to 9 months away, and this wave is crashing over us now. So I question how effective it actually would be. I realize there's massive amounts of negative feelings towards the unvaccinated, and I think there is a moral obligation to be vaccinated, and I do think it's unfair to other people. But it's going too far. I'm going to say this as well. We don't know what the fine's going to be, but they're pretty clear it's upward of 100. Could be like 5. I don't know. So we don't fully understand who the unvaccinated are. What we like to imagine they are is these awful, nasty, radical people, but we don't really know. I mean, and some of them may be, but some of them may not. They may just misunderstand. No. Could be cultural differences, could be poverty. Yep. So, a $500, I'm not saying it's going to be $500, I'm making this up, but, if you start hitting people...
He said it would be significant. He said it would be significant.
Yeah, and what significant means, I think of significant as a few, I don't know. I guess it all depends on how much money we have in our pockets, but I don't know. So, not loving it. I see lots of problems with it. I also think it's a dangerous precedent in this country.
Okay, what is dangerous about the precedent that it would set?
Well, what it does is it essentially says that we will make determinations about the behavior of people and then determine how we react to their health care. And, we do not want to go down. We have to deal with patients as they surface and not make judgments. This person drank too much wine last night. This person smokes half a pack a day. And it begins to sort of push us in that direction. Also, it's essentially a punishment. I'll leave it for the constitutional lawyers. Probably, many people in the media, and perhaps you too, will eventually interview them. I'm not sure it's going to hold up under the Canadian Charter. The difference, and people say, well, how is this different than seatbelts? How is this different? These are not my opinions at all, but the unvaccinated, there are many that have heard all the facts, and their position is, I do not believe it, or I don't trust it. and I do not want this substance injected into my body.
Right.
You could say we're not tying them down, but boy, we're getting a lot closer to that.
Okay. What other ethical concerns do you have, Kerry Bowman?
Well, that it radicalizes the population, that the fringe group of people gets pushed further and further and further. And, radicalization is not good for any society if it leads to extreme. People have a right to their opinions, but if it leads to extreme behavior, that would worry me a great deal. I would also argue that it may change the very fabric of how we perceive medical ethics in this country.
Okay. How is it different from the smoker who is paying $20 for a package of cigarettes because we have said, well, we try to create a barrier to smoking, or a sin tax on alcohol, for example? How does this differ from that?
Well, they're not directly fined. I mean, this is essentially a fine.
Right.
Here's another thing that worries me is, what are the mechanics of it? Do you hand these files? First of all, you have to find out who these people are. I have no idea how you're going to find that out. Finding who's vaccinated, we can find out. Finding who's unvaccinated, I don't even know where they're going to begin. Are you going to hand this over to Revenue Canada? Are you going to hand this over to the Quebec Police? And if you were, and I'm not suggesting that's what's going to happen, I may be way off on this, but let's just imagine that did happen. That's healthcare information that you're handing over now. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I guess it's one thing for your health practitioner to have your health information. It's another for health authorities to have your health information. It's another for Revenue Quebec, in this case, to have your health information.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just imagining it. But, we're all imagining, because what happened when this rolled out is it's pretty, what would the word be? It's not hypothetical, but there's no facts, Nobody knows exactly how it's going to play out or how it's going to be administered.
Do you think it might just be a ploy?
It could be. And, I'm going to sound cynical here, but so many people are these days. It's very wise for a politician to side against the unvaccinated these days. People, if you essentially told people to hunt down the unvaccinated with pitchforks and torches, they'd probably go for it at this point. They've been so demonized. And, some of them probably are really extreme and very selfish people. But we actually don't know that much about who's in that 10% is part of the problem. So I think it's a political win. I also think it's very destructive. Human psychology, when you create these divisions of us and them, watch out. Just look through human history. We are wired to turn on people. And, I do not think politicians should be cleaving, a society in this way. I think it's very, very risky.
Okay. Kerry Bowman, thank you for your time this morning. Very interesting.
You're very welcome.
Bioethicist. You too. Bioethicist at the University of Toronto. Your political fix. The politics of the anti-vax tax. After the news. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, January 12th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, light snow, -12, and in Smiths Falls, -5. Here's what's making news this hour. At 1:30 this afternoon, Provincial Education Minister has a media briefing scheduled. Stephen Lecce will talk about returning to in-class learning on Monday, as that plan has been in place now for the last couple of weeks. Now, while that is generally expected to be the focus of the announcement, school boards, like the Public Board in Ottawa, say they're prepared to follow provincial guidelines, whether that is what's being said or there's a change to that policy before Monday. Canadian hospitals already dealing with medical imaging backlogs before the pandemic hit. The Omicron variant threatening to overwhelm the healthcare system, and the situation is getting even worse. President of the Canadian Association of Radiologists says many CT and MRI appointments are being cancelled. That's a key concern because early detection of many diseases is important to a patient's successful recovery and cure. City News Time at 9:31. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News. 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
And the dynamic duo is here to help us score our political fix. Susan Smith is a principal at Bluesky Strategy Group. Good morning, Susan.
Good morning, Rob.
And all the best for the new year to you and your team over there at Bluesky as well.
Thank you.
Tim Powers is here. He's the chair of Summa Strategies and the managing director at Abacus Data. Good morning, Tim.
Rob, good
yes,
morning.
Sir. Happy, merry, and all that jolly stuff.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
The anti-vax tax is the biggest news story in the country, in my opinion. Quebec Premier François Legault is vowing to tax the unvaccinated. Susan, what is your reaction to that news?
Well, a couple of things. From a PR perspective, it certainly dominated over the resignation of his chief medical officer, Horacio Arruda.
Yep.
So that was one thing. It immediately talked over that story and deflected any potential blame or concern that might have landed on the premier's lap. And was Dr. Arruda the fall guy for the premier? So it was skillful from that perspective. I also think, it's par for the course for Mr. Legault. It's creative, definitely. Will it come through? We'll see. I'm very happy with the creativity for the vaccine resistant or the pokey folks who are resisting the poke with the news that you need to show your vaccine passport to get into a liquor store or a provincially run government marijuana store. The tax is going to be interesting to see how they implement it, to see how it gets through. Hopefully it encourages more people to get the vaccination. We all know that it's because with, less than 10% of the Canadian population is unvaxxed, but it's more than 50% of the emergency room beds in the hospital capacity, and it's really wreaking havoc on our healthcare system. So Mr. Legault is getting as creative as he can to drive people to get the shot.
Okay. What do you think about it? Your reaction upon hearing that news? Anti-vax tax. Tim Powers.
I like Susan. I thought that's pretty clever. I do wonder also if it will see the light of day. I know there's a God forbid, Rob, a constitutional debate emerging around its legitimacy. We couldn't get out of the pandemic, of course, without a constitutional debate. Now we have one of those, and it's not. We do tax to incentivize and discourage behavior. So this whole notion that we don't is farcical. Whether it is punitive and unconstitutional, given that healthcare in this country is principally supposed to be free, who knows?
Yeah.
But I think again, it's a warning shot from Legault saying to those in Quebec, "I'm going to do whatever it takes to get this done," and I wonder if others look to follow suit.
I just wonder if it's just a ploy.
Oh, it's a ploy. Of course
it's a ploy. That it may never come to pass.
Yeah. I
You
agree
think
with
so,
you on
Susan?
that, Rob.
It could be, right?
Yeah, I think it could be because they have to study it. They didn't have a lot of detail.
Right.
And they do have to find a way to make sure, as Tim points out, that it doesn't infringe on people's right to access healthcare.
that it's actually legal. That it's actually legal.
And I
right?
think if they find a way to bring it in, of course they'll have contemplated that all the way through. Look, Ontario has a health levy. It's not, you don't have to pull out your credit card when you get into our hospitals or see your doctors unless you're getting a health note or something like that. But there is one in Ontario for use of the system. So Quebec can put one in. And it's just in how they do it, whether or not it will be effective. But having that big specter out there may nudge a few more people. I don't know if it will have as much impact as you can't go get your bottle of Chardonnay or you can't go get
that worked. It worked. The number of people getting
a shot. I think that's going to be more effective. And if he takes other measures like blocking people from going into shopping malls, you don't have a constitutional right to shop in a shopping mall. You do have to be able to get your groceries and things like that. He's not suggesting going that far. But I think the more difficult it is for people who haven't taken the time to go get a vaccination and therefore putting other people at risk, the more difficult life is for them. That's not a bad thing.
Okay. Let's listen to him again here. Let's listen to him. Just the answer from the reporter's question, the only English answer to the question yesterday.
Yes, it's a big deal. If you look at what's happening in other countries or other states, everybody is trying to find a solution, a question of equity, because right now, these people, they put a very important burden on our healthcare network. And I think it's normal that the majority of the population is asking that there be a consequence. And yes, we will continue to look at spreading the use of the vaccine passport, but I think we have to go further. And I think that right now, it's a question also of fairness for the 90% of the population who made some sacrifices. I think we owe them this kind of measure.
We owe them this kind of measure, is what he said. But you think it might be a ploy, too, Tim, right? You think it could be just a ploy?
Rob, there must
like
be
a
an
threat
election. There must be an election.
Yeah, it is an election year,
Too, right?
Yeah.
Look, why wouldn't Legault or any premier right now want to be on the side of 90% of his constituency?
Sure.
And he can, in the end, 3 months from now, when we're hopefully in the endemic stage, say, look, I tried, but lawyers won't let me do it. But damn it, it had the right effect at that moment in time. I mean, look, it's a good political tool. It may in fact be useful policy, but we're not doing it tomorrow. And I think that's the most important lever that he has, because if you're sitting somewhere in Quebec and you're an anti-vaxxer, you can't go get your booze, you can't get your weed, and now they might take money out of your pocket because you won't get vaccinated. I mean, you got to be pretty frustrated and thinking about how long am I going to resist?
How long am I going to put up with this? How long am I going to put myself through this? Okay, so let's turn from there, because there is a news conference this morning with the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, and Mr. Duclos will be there as well, the Federal Health Minister, Jean-Yves Duclos, who encouraged provincial governments to discuss mandatory vaccination for everyone. Mandatory vaccination for everyone. Let's roll the tape on that, okay?
And I see in my own province, 50% of hospitalizations now in Quebec are due to people not having been vaccinated. That's a burden on healthcare workers, a burden on society, which is very difficult to bear, and for many people difficult to understand. So that's why I'm signaling this as a conversation which I believe provinces and territories, in support with the federal government, will want to have over the next weeks and months.
Okay, mandatory vaccination for everyone. Why? I think the question here is, why is he talking about that? Why is he saying that, Susan?
Well, that's the usual and the unchanging constitutional split between federal, where the provinces are in charge of healthcare. So it's not something the feds can impose. It's something the provinces can impose, and they'll be the ones that deliver it. If you think about schools, our children cannot enroll in school without their vaccinations, and that's a provincial jurisdiction. So there's an easy mechanism for the provinces to look at this kind of measure. It's a public health measure. They can enroll it and enforce it as they should, but it boils down to federal provincial jurisdiction. And the minute the feds step into provincial jurisdictions, the provinces scream. So it's up to the province.
But he knows that.
Yeah, but he
right. So why is he even talking? But why is he even talking about it? Why is he?
Well,
even
why
talking?
not put it on the table for a conversation? Right. Why not? He can talk about it. Of course, he can talk about it, and then the provinces have to say why they're not doing it.
Okay. All right. What do you think, Tim? Why is he bringing that up? Do you think?
He's stirring the pot a little bit.
I think he's stirring the pot. Yeah, Susan. I think he's stirring the pot.
And if he's in Quebec and he's double vaxxed, he can get pot, so that's good for him to chill him out. But he's stirring the pot a little bit. Look, they're also trying to distract from the heat they were getting on not getting enough rapid tests out the door. So because as Susan said with Premier Legault, he just lost his chief medical officer. Federally, Duclos and Trudeau were taking some heat for not a lot of rapid tests. When you say mandatory, you immediately get attention. And also maybe there's some moral suasion and all of that. Maybe it forces some reflection elsewhere. And final point, he, of course, is elected in Quebec. And as you pointed out, Rob, in your intro, the policy on showing ID vaccine passports at liquor stores and weed dispensaries is seemingly having a positive effect and hasn't even started yet.
Yeah. The number of people who signed up for first doses quadrupled.
Yeah.
So it had the desired effect. So at 11:30, both Mr. Duclos, as I mentioned, and the Prime Minister will have a news conference. Okay. How do you expect Mr. Trudeau to, because he's surely going to be asked about it, probably repeatedly, how do you expect him to respond to Premier Legault's plan for this anti-vax tax? What do you think the Prime Minister is going to say, Susan?
I think he's going to say we'll wait and see what they put forward. It's within the bounds of the provinces to put forth measures that's within their jurisdiction to encourage people to get vaccinations. So he said, I think what he'll say is we haven't seen what it is yet, so we'll have a look. As long as it does not prohibit people receiving healthcare services, that will be up to the Quebec government to design it.
Okay. What do you think he's going to say, Tim? Something
well,
along those
first of all,
lines?
he's going to tell us, Rob. He's got our backs.
Okay. All right.
And in fairness, he's not the only one saying that. My God, if another politician tells us they're there with us, we've got your back. We're all going to scream. He will probably say a little bit more than he said on Bill 21 and what Legault has done there. But again, I think he's not going to be too definitive, as Susan suggested. It will be interesting to see how far he does dabble in this, because again, he wants to play to that crowd that is large and frustrated, and wants that frustration to move away from him and to focus more on them, the anti-vaxxers.
Okay, look, we're going to stop here. We'll be right back. Part 2 of Your Political Fix with Susan Smith and Tim Powers. I'm Rob Snow, and this is City News.
The food cupboard started about 25 years ago. Again, it was a very small operation in the basement of a church. And we have been expanding to the point where we needed to have a new facility. So in discussion with the city of Ottawa, and Jan Harder, the local representative here, we came to this location, which is about 2,000 square feet, located in the Walter Baker Center. We've been here for about 2 years, and it is much better. It gives us a much broader opportunity to serve our clients better. It's a fairly affluent community in Barrhaven, so you wouldn't think that people would really need to have a food bank or a food cupboard. But people sometimes have a temporary loss of their job, maybe new immigrants or refugees to the community. Maybe there's been an injury in the family or something like a pandemic that causes people to run short of food during their monthly requirements. So we offer any clients who come and live in our catchment area the opportunity to pick up an order of food every 3 or 4 weeks. The need varies from time to time. We have expanded our offering to include quite a few perishables, eggs, milk, cheese, yogurt, vegetables, fruit. But people, I think, know that we need cans of beans and stuff as well too. One thing that we're consistently short of sometimes is personal hygiene products. You go to the grocery store, you buy your toothpaste and you buy your deodorant and shampoo there. People don't automatically think that to donate those kinds of things to a food cupboard. So we end up buying quite a few of those things from time to time. The pandemic has affected us like it has everybody. Initially, we had to stop the grocery store food donations so that we didn't have any risk of contamination and to have a significant number of volunteer work to be done in our facility. We have a storefront, so it's like a mini grocery store where you take a cart and you go around and pick out the things that you want. That doesn't work during the pandemic to maintain social distancing and so on. So what we have now is our clients can come in one at a time, they make an appointment, they stand behind a line, and they direct our volunteer to, I'd like Kellogg's cornflakes rather than Harvest Crunch, to pick the food that they would like off the shelves according to the allocation, depending on the size of their family. And then they take it out, load it into their vehicle or whatever, bring back the cart, we disinfect everything, and prepare for the next client. We are very blessed here in Barrhaven. We're a totally volunteer organization. So if you give a dollar to us, it goes to purchasing food or to provide some service to our clients.
Icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Oh, by the way, at some point this morning, maybe around 11:15 or so, I'm going to play an extended clip. I actually watched for the very first time in a very long time the UK House of Commons this morning. On Wednesdays at noon London time, which is 7 o'clock our time, they have Prime Minister's questions. And the Prime Minister stands there during the question period, takes all of the questions. So Boris Johnson is in some hot water right now because he had a party at the Prime Minister's residence, number 10 Downing. And he had that party for 100 people, a garden party, in May of 2020, when all of the UK was under lockdown, and now emails and videos, photographs, all of it is being leaked to the media. So this was the first time that the Prime Minister had a chance to respond to all the questions about the garden party, which was BYOB, and he apologized, and he said he thought it was a work function. which I quite love. I don't know, if I got invited to the Prime Minister's residence for a garden party, I would like to think the Prime Minister would provide the booze, that I wouldn't have to bring my own booze to the Prime Minister's residence. But nevertheless, that's coming right up. At the end of 2021, when we did our kind of year in review shows, we asked some of the people that are routinely part of The Political Fix to name their politician of the year for 2021. And a lot of them said it was Premier Legault, that Premier Legault is giving a master class in politics right now. So whether it's this, the anti-vax tax, whether it's having Canada's only curfew, his stance on Bill 21, whatever the case might be, Quebecers seem content with his leadership. How do you explain, Susan Smith is with us, Bluesky Strategy Group, Tim Powers, Chair, Summa Strategies. Susan, how do you explain his enduring popularity? It's not like his government has a great record when it comes to coping with COVID-19, Susan.
Yeah, that's a very good question, Rob. And at the end of the year versus a second lockdown and a second curfew may have a slight dent on that, but I don't think it's going to change it substantially. I think it's a combination of things. I think part of it is his folksy, blunt, direct style.
Okay.
But the other part really is there's not a whole big bunch of opposition to him from a visibility perspective. The Liberal Party in Quebec is still kind of nowhere, and so is the rest of the opposition. So COVID has continued to be the issue of the day, and whether or not people want to change horses in the middle of what is, the fifth wave, I think so far people are comfortable and confident with the way he's managing things to the extent that it's better the devil you know. So I think that's where it largely lies, lack of opposition and his ability to communicate. So I do think a second lockdown is going to annoy a few people.
Okay. Why do you think Premier Legault remains so popular, Tim?
I think he has a way of connecting with people in Quebec that is more contemporary and realistic than most of the other premiers. I mean, he doesn't look to be as stagecraft or as managed as many of the others. I think he, and he may entirely be, but his presentation skills, his way to connect with the public on, whatever the emotional temperature is at the moment is better than any other premier and better than the prime minister at the moment, and that is helping him here. And I think he knows Quebec well. He knows his province well, and those of us like me who find Bill 21 odious and the like, he knows how to play the wedges in his province maybe better than the other premiers do, and he's doing it with great aplomb. And as you say, his government has no sterling record, but he certainly is a master at playing the terrain.
He's hard to nail down ideologically, don't you think?
Yeah.
Like, how would you?
Go ahead.
He could be. He could be. For example, on issues of the environment and climate change, he's very progressive. On issues of multiculturalism, he's regressive. He's fiscally conservative. I think you could say that. But when it comes to investing in social programs, it's come up lacking here. So I don't know. It's very hard to nail down. And he does have a populist streak, certainly, Susan.
I agree with that. Yeah. I agree with your assessment of him, Rob, and minus the Bill 21 stuff. Yeah. I think he largely lands with the majority of Quebecers. Nobody likes to be in a box and stuck in a box, and I think people like a bit of nimbleness from their nimbleness that isn't, flip-flopping from their politicians, an ability to adjust to the situation. I think most Canadians and most Quebecers are middle of the road, and this is largely where Legault has been able to land himself, again, except with the exception of C-22, that I think is a terrible piece of legislation and needs to be obliterated.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Hard to nail down ideologically.
So C-21. Sorry, C-21.
Yeah. Hard to nail down ideologically, though, Tim, right? Hard to, you couldn't put him in a box.
Quebecers like that. They don't want a rigid ideologue. The more successful premiers that they have had have been Quebecois first, with flexible ideology second.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about Aaron O'Toole.
Yes, please.
Yeah. The Conservative Party leader, Aaron O'Toole. We have a clip. Yeah. He said recently there should be reasonable accommodations made for the unvaccinated. Let's listen to that.
I've actually talked to medical experts to say the more we take the temperature down, we can get a large number of people that are hesitant vaccinated. We can also have reasonable accommodations for some people that may not be vaccinated, particularly in jobs like trucking and others, where it can be accommodated without any medical risk.
Okay. Reasonable accommodations for the unvaccinated. What is your reaction to O'Toole taking that point of view? Susan Smith.
I have a combination of reactions.
Okay,
I'm first gobsmacked that he continues to kick that hornet's nest because 90% or 70% of the population is like, just get vaccinated, folks. And then I'm disappointed in him from a leadership perspective because this is a purely political position. I know he's a politician, but this is a guy whose job is in trouble. His caucus isn't all behind him. He's trying to prevent a bunch of people running to Max Bernier. And he's making pronouncements that are not based on good public policy or good health policy, but just purely politically driven. And I think it's damaging to him. I think all the progressives that he wants to woo back to his party, the progressive conservatives that have been homeless or lived with the Liberals for a while, are just going to shake their heads at this guy. And I think he's exceptionally misguided on this. And I think it's going to backfire on him.
It's going to backfire. Okay.
So all the power to you, Aaron. Go for it.
Okay. All right. Tim Powers, what do you think about that?
I mean, look, I'm a staunch pro-vaccination, so I have difficulty with the position of reasonable accommodation here. I mean, he is, as Susan suggests, playing politics. The risk for Aaron O'Toole or anybody else right now who's too political in the middle of, or hopefully it's not the middle, it's near the end of this pandemic, is it'll blow up on them. I think the broad public doesn't have a lot of tolerance right now for political games. They're wearing thin, listening to experts, listening to politicians, and they just want outcomes. So Mr. O'Toole needs to probably think about being a bit more cautious and not letting internal dynamics shape immediate behavior, because if he gets through this and he gets on a runway towards the next election where he's still in charge, this is going to come back and potentially bite him with a broader audience.
Yeah, he needs to, what killed him in the last election was his stance on vaccines. He needs to stop hugging that prickly porcupine, because his face is full of the wrong kind of needles, right? It's crazy. So, you know, as a partisan Liberal, I'm delighted that he continues to be that foolish. I think it's weak from a leadership perspective, but as a Canadian, I'm really disappointed. You know, come on, Aaron, let's row the right direction and not be pandering to the people that you need to support you in your caucus.
Hit them with a tax. All right, let's wrap it up. Thank you so much to Susan Smith and Tim Powers for this morning. It's always great when you're together on the show. I really appreciated the time this morning. Thanks again.
Well, to be with a pillar of the community.
Absolutely,
like
absolutely.
It's a true honor for both of us.
Susan Smith and Tim Powers, that's your political fix coming up right after the news. Hey, it's the anti-vax tax. I want to know your opinion on the anti-vax tax at 750-1310. It's our talkback hour, your hour. Right after the news, Rob Snow Show, City News.
local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, January 12th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, some light snow. It's minus 11. In Smiths Falls, it's minus 5. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. An update from our Prime Minister today. That's expected at 11:30 this morning. City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney with what's expected.
The update comes a couple of days after the Prime Minister held a call with the premiers where the main focus was what the federal government can do to help provinces as their health systems are being overwhelmed. The feds expect more provincial requests for emergency assistance in the weeks ahead, but have warned they only have so many doctors, nurses, and staff that can help, and they will have to strategically deploy resources so that they can effectively help provinces facing capacity issues. The Prime Minister also said there are enough vaccines available to give all adults in Canada not only their booster shots, but also their fourth dose if needed. The feds are also delivering 140 million rapid tests to provinces this month. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
City News Time, 10:01. And now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
For Ottawa, the Valley, Smiths Falls, today quite a bit of cloud for most areas. Some flurries and a couple of centimeters could accumulate. The high near -1. Tonight, cloudy and -10. And for tomorrow, some flurries for the afternoon, the high -5. For today, gradually getting warmer, will climb to -1.
And right now in Ottawa, some light snow. It's -11, -5 in Smiths Falls. Details do remain scant in Quebec's proposal to tax those who are unvaccinated against COVID-19. Now, some have called this a slippery slope. Bioethicist Kerry Bowman with the University of Toronto telling the Rob Snow Show this morning, this is dangerous.
We have to deal with patients as they surface and not make judgments. You know, this person drank too much wine last night. This person smokes half a pack a day. And it begins to sort of push us in that direction.
Now, Bowman says creating division among people is dangerous. One look through history, he says, shows how people turn on one another. Ontario's education minister and the top doctor in the province set to hold an update this afternoon. The province prepping to reopen schools to in-class learning next week. The first time in a while now that we'll be seeing Stephen Lecce taking questions. Here's City News reporter Kevin Meisner.
This will be the first public appearance by Education Minister Stephen Lecce in weeks. He'll be joined by the Chief Medical Officer of Health at 1:30 this afternoon at Queen's Park. A key question he'll face is what happens if large numbers of teachers and students call in sick with Omicron. CEO of Ontario Health, Matthew Anderson, says that is going to be a major challenge.
The data suggests that being back in school does not drive up the cases for our kids. And what we need to monitor really is absenteeism for our teachers and for the kids coming back to school.
School boards may reassign support staff and non-certified teachers or retirees to classrooms and possibly shut down individual schools on a temporary basis. There's even talk of alternating between in-person and virtual learning days. At Queen's Park, Kevin Meisner, City News.
City News Time at 10:03. Inflation in the United States jumped 7% in December from 1 year ago. It is the highest inflation rate in that country since 1982, and the latest evidence of rising costs for everything from food to gas to other necessities. Inflation has spiked during the recovery from the pandemic recession, Americans ramping up spending on goods like cars, furniture, and appliances. The Bank of Canada will be releasing the next inflation data 1 week from today. And a car bomb has exploded outside the international airport in Somalia's capital, Mogadishu. A local doctor says it killed at least 8, wounded 9 others. Kara Anna telling us this morning one witness saw a United Nations convoy at the time of the bombing.
Our person on the ground said this occurred near a checkpoint near the airport, and they spoke with witnesses who said they thought that a passing United Nations convoy was the target.
The al-Qaeda-linked al-Shabaab extremist group that controls parts of Somalia claimed responsibility for that attack. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
The anti-vax tax. Do you agree or disagree with taxing the unvaccinated? A special tax only for the unvaccinated. 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. And if you are in favor of taxing the unvaccinated. How much should the tax be? In Quebec's case with Premier Legault, he says it's going to be significant. I'll pay a significant tax. Should it be a few $100s? Would that be significant? A few $1,000s? Would that be significant? How about the whole medical bill if an unvaccinated person ends up in the hospital? 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Yeah, the anti-vax tax. Agree or disagree? Agree or disagree? It's Quebec's plan to make the unvaccinated pay a special tax for health care. The anti-vax tax, 750-1310. The premier says the tax is going to be significant. How much money is significant? In your opinion? I have to say, I never thought I'd be asking you this. I never thought I would be asking you this, but here I am, and I'm asking you this. And, tomorrow was the second anniversary of the launch of the Rob Snow Show on City News. 2 years ago tomorrow, I did my first show over here. I had, what was then 1310 News? And I would estimate that over that time, 90% of it has been taken up by this one and only news story, okay? The pandemic. And there's no end in sight, and I'll be covering it, I suspect, for years to come. The pandemic might be over, but the fallout from the pandemic, I think we're going to be talking about that for years. 2 years ago, I can remember thinking in terms of 2 weeks. Oh, this will last 2 weeks. We'll shut things down for a couple of weeks. It'll be tough, but I'll spend it binge watching some Netflix, and then all of this will be over. And now 2 years later, this is the top story in the country. Okay, a special tax for people who refuse to be vaccinated. Front page, Globe and Mail today. Quebec to impose tax on the unvaccinated. Front page, National Post this morning. Quebec working on taxing the unvaxxed. Front page, Ottawa Citizen this morning. No vax, pay the tax. Ottawa Sun, front page this morning. No vax, big tax. And on it goes like that. A special tax for people who refuse to be vaccinated against COVID-19. That's where we are now. From, this will last about 2 weeks and then it'll be over, to a tax for people who refuse to be vaccinated. And then you think about everything that we've talked about in between. Debates about masks and border restrictions and Atlantic bubbles and curfews and school closures and capacity limits and big box stores versus Main Street mom and pops and the CERB and the healthcare system and the disgrace of long-term care. Everything else that has been up for debate in the public domain because of this wretched, relentless virus. But I have to say I never thought it would come to this, but now it has come to this. And now I'm asking you about this. Anti-vax tax. Anti-vax tax. Do you agree or disagree with taxing the unvaccinated? I'm keeping score. Ches, good morning. In Canada, you're on City News.
Hey, Rob, how are you?
I'm good. Do you agree or disagree with taxing the unvaccinated?
Totally disagree.
Okay.
You've heard of Eye of the Idol, right? Remember that? Careful what you wish for?
Careful what you wish for. Okay. Yeah.
So, Rob, Canadians, sometimes I laugh, they're among the most gullible and fearful people that I've come across. Those 50 or 60% of Canadians that support Legault's draconian tax grab, okay?
Okay.
I would like to know how many of those people smoke, drink, have type 2 diabetes, potential for lung cancer, have been infected with HIV, or any of these ailments that put a toll on the healthcare system.
Right. Because
what this is going to cause is that they're going to start thinking, well, then you should be paying the same taxes. You're doing this to the healthcare system. You're
causing a burden. How many times have we heard that? We heard that from Mr. Legault yesterday. We heard it from Mr. Duclos on Friday. So
exactly, and
a burden.
I've read a lot of articles now about our healthcare system. It's broken. Okay, it's been broken for years.
Yeah.
And the only thing that's world class about our healthcare system are the good doctors, nurses, staff, technicians, all those people. But they're only limited in what they can do. Whether it be administrative issues or whatnot. Because when you have to wait 80 days to get an MRI or 2 years to get a knee replacement, there are serious issues.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
So in terms of Legault, this guy's a genius. I'll tell you why. Because, he comes from the old Levesque days, right?
Well, he's a Piquest. He's a Piquest. Yeah,
Mr. Trudeau's no match for this guy. Every decision that he has made thus far, including the vile, racist Bill 21, it's all leading to one question, a referendum. Because if 50 to 60% of Canadians support this draconian tax grab, hell, maybe they'll support this idea of Quebec being its own nation.
All right.
So it goes beyond that, I think, than just healthcare. And when you have 10% of people that are unvaccinated that are wreaking havoc in the healthcare system, that we had 2 years to, bolster.
Shore up. Yep, bolster. Yep, good word. Yep.
So he's basically deflecting his government's failure on dealing with the pandemic and the long-term care facilities. That's what's going on. And people are forgetting about that.
Okay. Thank you, Ches. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Yep. Good one. Just getting word, 3 o'clock this afternoon, the mayor, Councillor Eglai, the chair of the Board of Health, the medical officer of health, Dr. Etchus, the general manager, Emergency Protective Services, Kim Ayat, will do a media briefing. 3 o'clock this afternoon. We will have all the details here on City News. Yeah, it's news conference day. We have the Prime Minister at 11:30. Ontario's Education Minister, that's at 1:30. Along with Dr. Moore, I believe, is going to be at that one too. Dr. Kieran Moore, Ontario's Medical Officer of Health. And now 3 o'clock this afternoon is a city update on this. But we're talking about the anti-vax tax. I think Premier Legault, I think it's fair to say, shocked the country yesterday with this announcement that the plan is the unvaccinated would pay a special tax because of the burden. He said the burden they place on the healthcare system. Is it legal? Is it constitutional? Is it ethical? I guess judges will decide on the first two. Is it legal and is it constitutional? I'm really interested in the third question. Is it ethical? The anti-vax tax. I want to know where you come down on this. Do you agree or disagree with this? At 750-1310. Richard in Orleans. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah, good morning.
I disagree with the tax,
but okay.
For these people that are causing havoc within the healthcare system, there has to be some consequences. And to me, one of the ways that you can make a consequence is if a person who is anti-vax goes into a hospital, then they should pay 10% or 20% of the bill. I don't think, if I'm vaccinated, I'm fully vaccinated, but I don't think I should have a tax if I'm not causing any problem within the healthcare system. So if I cause a problem within the healthcare system,
only if you're hospitalized. Only if you're hospitalized.
Only if you're hospitalized. But I do not agree with that tax. I just can't.
And say it's 10% of the bill. Okay, I'd remind you and this is from the Canadian Institute for Health Information. Numbers came out not that long ago. The average cost of treating one patient for COVID-19 in a Canadian hospital is $22,000. And if you're admitted to ICU, it's $48,000. So you would say 10% of the bill. So say between $2,000 and $4,000 or $2,500 to $5,000, a bill like that?
Absolutely, and I think you'd have people running for a vaccination center.
Very interesting, sir. Thank you. Thank you for your call. Okay, 750-1310. Johnny, Ottawa. Good morning, Johnny. You're on City News.
Yes, I agree with Mr. Legault.
You do? Okay, Johnny, why?
Yeah, because how much does he have to say for the people to go get the vaccine? You've been talking like that for months, and people do not listen.
Okay.
So maybe if you get a little bill in the mail, maybe you might just say, okay, it's time to go get the needle.
Time to get tough, you mean?
And that gentleman before him was saying, well, if you get hospitalized, if you go to the hospital, yes, 10-20% of the bill you should pay then. I agree with that man there, was a while ago there.
Okay. So, yeah, say, they say it costs between $22,000 to $48,000 to treat somebody.
So,
yeah.
What'd you rather do with you,
So send them a bill for $2,500 or $5,000 or something like that. You're saying.
If they're going to start finding people in Quebec, man, whoa! He said there's going to be a fine. From $1,000 up.
Right. Well, he said it's going to be significant. Yes.
We got 2 weeks. So 2 weeks, come on.
Okay. Thank you, Johnny. Thank you, Johnny.
Don't be afraid of the needle. You need it.
You need it. Thank you, Johnny. Johnny's all for it. Taxing the unvaccinated. This is the Rob Snow Show Talkback Hour. One line available at 750-1310. It's yours if you want it. This is City News.
So Rideau Rockcliffe Community Resource Centre has been around since 1982, and it's here to serve residents of Ward 13. So our focus is on helping to reduce poverty in this community, as well as empowering residents to find resilience within themselves. So one of the new focuses of our centre is around food programming. So you'll notice today when we go around on a little tour that we have a number of food programs here at the centre. So one being obviously our emergency food program, which is really great. So residents can come and access food when they are in need. We also have a number of food-based social enterprises here at Rideau Rockcliffe as well. So one being the Ottawa Good Food Box, another being Market Mobile. One of our new initiatives that started this year as response to COVID is called Good Food on the Move, and it's a click and collect online store, and we have 7 pickup locations throughout the city. More sort of local here for Ward 13 residents, we've also started a free produce market as well. So community members can come on Wednesdays and Fridays and be able to access additional free fruits and vegetables.
Social Harvest Ottawa is one of the social enterprises here at the Rideau Rockcliffe Community Resource Centre. We operate this great urban greenhouse, and our work is not only to grow nutritious and delicious food, but also to nourish communities with community members here in Ward 13 and beyond. The greenhouse is a year-round project. We're a team of 4 employees working here. We have 2 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees. We focus on growing microgreens from late fall to early spring, and hothouse crops in the summertime, such as tomatoes and cucumbers.
The Mission Food Truck we're in our 5th week of collaborating with them to come visit our center, and we just got in on it at the right time. They were looking for new communities to branch out to. They said absolutely. Right now they're funded through donations. They travel around Ottawa and just give out delicious, fresh, hot food to people as well. We have at our center the Ottawa Good Food Box, as well as the Market Mobile. So Ottawa Good Food Box has been around for 25 years, and Market Mobile is a little younger, started in 2014. So they both have the mission and the mandate of making fresh food more accessible and affordable in neighborhoods that lack access to a grocery store. So I think the greatest need that we've seen as a result of the pandemic in our community is people that we maybe have never needed to access our services before, right? So a lot of people have had, layoffs. Maybe they're just not able to work because they have to stay home with their children, over the summer, that sort of thing. So we've definitely seen the need go out, particularly for our food programming, as well as some of our counseling services as well. So it's a heavy time for people emotionally.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
The anti-vax tax. Do you agree or do you disagree with taxing the unvaccinated? That's the plan in the province of Quebec right now. They're going to tax the unvaccinated. Dave in Kemptville. Good morning, Dave. You're on City News.
Good morning, Rob.
Morning, Dave.
First-time caller, but I just had a thought I wanted to share with you.
Sure.
I thought rather than taxing the unvaccinated, we reward the vaccinated.
Okay.
It's a more positive spin to it, and probably a lot easier to implement than taxing the unvaccinated. It gives them some incentive to go and get vaccinated. It could be a tax credit or whatever, but I just thought it's a more positive way to approach this.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. Thank you. Instead of, punishing those that don't, reward those who do. 750-1310, 750-1310. I want to ask kind of a follow-up question as well, but only if you're, in support of taxing the unvaccinated. The Premier of Quebec said yesterday, I want the tax to be significant. He said it's, basically it's going to hurt. What would be significant to you, as a tax, to tax an unvaccinated individual? $100, $200, $500, $1,000? When it costs $22,000 to $48,000 to treat someone in the hospital who has COVID, maybe you send them a bill for $20,000 or $40,000, or you send them the whole bill. Okay? So I'd like to get into that with you as well this morning here on City News. Lauren Bayshore. Lauren, good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah, good morning.
This is
Agree or
Kerry,
disagree?
man.
Sorry?
Oh, I completely disagree.
Completely disagree.
Especially as they didn't put a religious exemption in there. It's kind of blatantly unconstitutional. So we're going to start making people of Jewish descent or any religious pay their health care versus other people.
Right. Well, in Quebec, they've never been really too concerned with what it says in the Canadian Constitution.
Right? Yeah, but don't we as taxpayers, this is all going to go through challenges and everything.
Oh,
we
yes,
as taxpayers pay for all of this either way.
Yes, we do.
If they violate people's rights, we're going to be the people handing out billions of dollars in the future. I mean, it happened with the Japanese. It happened with the Italians during the Second World War. Second World War.
Sorry, we've, it's an apology. 20 years from now, we'll be apologizing for this, or 50 years from now, or whatever.
And I'm very concerned that none of these officials have read our Constitution and are aware there's conscientious objectors, or we're allowed to hold true to our own conscience.
Yeah, sure. Conscience rights are right in there. Yeah.
Where some of it, I had to get a vaccine so I could go see my daughter in Nova Scotia to get through the troops on the border and stuff like that.
Right, yeah.
But I don't agree with this, and if they want to come after my money, that's great. I'm just going to stop contributing to this society, which is going to cost them a lot more.
All right, Lauren. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Bye. Okay, bye. Yep. In Low, Quebec. Patrick. Good morning, Patrick.
Good morning, Rob. How are you?
I'm good, sir. Thank you. Agree or disagree with taxing the unvaccinated?
Isn't this a good question?
Yes, I think so.
We're down a rabbit hole that we don't seem to be coming out of, as you said in your original statement. We've been going this for 2 years now.
Yep.
I'm not surprised, to be quite honest. I would say I'm completely in disagreement.
Okay.
And for anyone who's out there that think that this may be a good idea, I think people should try to answer or question themselves to say, okay, if we start this, then what are we going to do with obese people, and what are we going to do with diabetes? People that have diabetes and smoke and drink too much.
Yeah.
So we are dividing ourselves into little pockets within a society that is, pretty much divisive right now, and there's no. Our politicians are only nurturing this division. And so I will say right here, I'm unvaccinated. I caught COVID. I didn't go to the hospital. I got the first strain, scared the hell out of me. But I'm in good health, and so I'm not a burden to society. I'm not a burden to the system. I pay my taxes. I have 4 kids. We are not vaccinated because one of my kids has a precondition to his heart. And so, in solidarity to one of my child, we decided to do this. Now, I've got members of my family that no longer talk to us. I've got friends that have demonized us to a point where, I lost friends, but at the same time, I have found new people. And so, again, I urge your audience, and you have a large audience, I urge your audience to open their hearts, to look into their souls, and to see fundamentally how the politicians are working us against ourselves.
All right, Patrick. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Yep. Bye-bye. Yep. He raises a great point, though, and something that I wanted to get into about the slippery slope. This is about as slippery as it gets, okay? You have to, if this is the beginning, where does it end, right? The most obvious comparison, and maybe it's not the best comparison, is smoking and drinking. We had to treat you in the hospital for lung cancer, so here's your bill for that. We had to treat you in the hospital for cirrhosis of the liver. Here's your bill for that. You could also make the case, okay, there are already sin taxes in place to punish the smoker, punish the drinker, the sin taxes on tobacco and alcohol. So that's why I say maybe they're not the best examples. But what about type 2 diabetes? Called a lifestyle disease. Okay, well, you didn't exercise. You had a poor diet for years. You've been overweight for years. You generally did not take care of yourself. And now you're Mr. Legault and Mr. Duclos last week, the word they used, you're a burden. Now you're a burden to the rest of us. on the healthcare system. Terrible way to describe someone as a burden. You're a burden. Now you're a burden. And because you are burdensome, well, the rest of society, we shouldn't be on the hook for that. You should be on the hook for that. So we're going to have the type 2 tax. Right? Where does it end? Where does it end? The examples are endless. Skydiving is dangerous. You knew there was a chance the parachute wouldn't open. You were speeding when you lost control of the car. You knew there was a chance you could hit that tree, but you did it anyway. It shouldn't be on the rest of society to pay for your stupidity. Now you have to pay the stupid driver tax. You know, we aren't perfect. We all make poor decisions. I'm 50. I've made a few doozies in my life. You weren't wearing a helmet on your e-scooter. You weren't wearing your seatbelt, your life jacket. You didn't have batteries in your smoke detector. You knew there was a chance you could overdose on opioids. You should have known. You must have known. So you have to pay. You're a burden. You're a burden. Isn't that it? Isn't that what Premier Legault is saying? Marie in the West End. Marie. Hi, Marie.
Hello, Rob.
Hi, Marie. Agree or disagree, Marie?
I disagree with the Premier.
Okay.
As angry as I get with the unvaxxed, and there's some of the things they say why or whatever, it's their rights, but they are hurting other people in a lot of cases. But I disagree with them, just like I disagreed with the hijab in Chelsea. Quebec just thinks they can do whatever, and I totally disagree. It's not fair. We do have rights, and it's not fair to call people names that he calls them either. And anyway, I was involved, Rob, to be honest with you, with a couple that would not get vaxxed. One of them now has, and their excuses was they were scared. No reason other than I just don't want to get a vaccination.
Right.
They only started doing.
Okay.
So, but no, I disagree wholeheartedly.
All right. Thank you, Marie. Thank you for your
welcome.
call. Going to take one more here before halftime, maybe two more. Up next in Nepean, Michael. Good morning, Michael. You're on City News.
Good morning, Rob.
Yep.
Guy a couple calls back beat me to it. I think it is a very slippery slope.
Yep.
I think, like you said about the smokers or, people that eat at McDonald's 5 times a day or what have you. Like, we need to be careful about the doors that we're opening and what we're actually asking for and the ramifications that could come. You know?
Yep. Oh, absolutely, Michael. Absolutely.
So,
Yep.
yeah,
Thank you, Michael.
Other than that, I'd just like to say you do a great show. I love listening
Appreciate
to you,
it.
even though you get my blood up sometimes.
Well,
but
that's kind of the idea. Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Mike.
Great job.
Bye-bye. Yeah. One more. Jeff in Ottawa. Jeff, you're on City News. Jeff? Oh, sorry. Hold on. There we go. Jeff. Yeah, sorry, Jeff. Sorry, Jeff.
You're crying to these people right now, bleeding hearts. No more bleeding hearts.
No more bleeding hearts?
That's a disease. You breathe on me, I get it.
Yep.
If you have smokers' lungs or whatever, cancer, you breathe on me, you kiss me, I don't get anything. This is passed on.
Okay.
Take the vaccine.
Okay.
Don't kill anybody. People have HIV, don't tell people to have sex, they get charged for assault. Sometimes murder. They get put in jail. That's what we should do, these non-vaccine people.
Okay. So you agree. You agree with the tax. You agree?
I don't agree with the tax. I agree to get tough. Forget the
Get
tax.
tough.
We don't need money. We need to fix these people's brains. You're killing
Okay.
people.
What are you recommending? Lobotomies or something, Jeff? Or,
Yeah, sure. Why not?
okay.
No more bleeding hearts.
All right. No more bleeding hearts. Okay. All right. I'll put him down as like he's in favor of a $100 fine to start. Okay. Lobotomies, Jeff? Damn right. We're back after the news on City News.
News in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, January 12th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, -11 with some scattered light snow still. In Smiths Falls, it's -4. Here's what's making news this hour. An update from the Prime Minister scheduled to start about 1 hour from now at 11:30. You'll hear that live on City News, Ottawa and Smiths Falls. A couple of days ago, Justin Trudeau did hold a conference call with provincial and territorial leaders just a couple of days ago to talk about COVID strategy, vaccines, and testing. Latest COVID figures from the province show 505 people now in the ICUs across Ontario. That's out of 3,448 people that are currently in hospital. There are just under 9,800 more positive cases of COVID from tests that were done. Another 46 people have died from COVID just in the past day in Ontario. Around our region, new cases uncovered by the testing, 588 in Ottawa, 115 in the Eastern Ontario Health Unit, 54 in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, and 88 in Renfrew County. Ontario's education minister set to address the media at 1:30 this afternoon, generally expected to confirm students are back to in-class learning on Monday. City News Time, 10:33. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Do you agree or disagree with taxing the unvaccinated? That's our hot topic of the morning, and we're going to get right back to the phone calls. Up next, Jessica Orleans. Good morning. You're on City News.
Good morning, Rob. How are you?
Everything's good, Jessica. Thank you.
Good.
Agree or disagree? A special tax for the unvaccinated.
Agree. In this mental health, okay, when I cover alcoholic, and it's a
I'm sorry, Jessica, you're going to have to call back because your phone is cutting in and out there, and it's very hard for the rest of us to hear you. So if you can get a clearer line, I'll bump you back to the front of the line. Don't worry. On the Gatineau side, Michael. Good morning, Michael.
Hey there, Rob. Thanks for taking my call.
Pleasure, sir.
I completely disagree.
All right.
And just a couple points. One thing that really concerns me is a trend that I've been seeing happen. Trudeau did it back in September. Legault's doing it now, is blaming the unvaxxed for major problems that are happening in the healthcare system, demonizing this group when it's not actually their fault. There were major problems with the healthcare system before. It's not the fault of the unvaxxed that we're now living through this. I think there's been the past 2 years, we've had time to address this. But, kind of the incompetency of the hospital administrators and executives, they haven't fixed the underlying problems. And I think now what we're doing is, as a society, or I see a lot of people doing this, we're demonizing a specific group for the ills.
Yeah. It's a great point you make. I think this is going to be the line now from the official opposition, from the Conservatives. I see Poilievre is starting to talk in these terms already, that you spent whatever it was, say $500 billion. How, as a federal government, do you spend $500 billion and yet you add no surge capacity to the healthcare system across Canada? How do you do that? How do you accomplish that? That's a special kind of incompetence. That's what Mr. Poilievre's line of attack is going to be, I think, from here on in, Michael.
I agree. And I think history has shown us that it's a very dangerous path when we point the finger at one specific group and say, those people are the reason for our problems. History proves that's a very bad path to go down.
All right, Michael. Great point, sir. Thank you very much. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is Ryan in Ottawa. Good morning, Ryan. You're on City News. Agree or disagree with taxing the unvaccinated?
Hey, Rob. Totally disagree. I would agree if there was no double vax in the ICU, but you look at the numbers in Quebec, there's almost more than double people double vaccinated in the ICU than unvaccinated. So I could agree if that never happened. If you got vaccinated, you never got it, never spreaded it, but they do. So it wouldn't matter if we were all vaccinated anyway. There would still be people in the ICU, still people filling up the hospitals.
Okay.
And you can't even believe those numbers now, because now that's coming out that people that are in car accidents are in the hospital, but they get tested, and okay, now they're COVID patients. So you can't even believe those numbers.
Yeah. Are they may be in with COVID, but are they in for COVID? Right.
Exactly.
This is the distinction that is finally starting to be made now in some of the data sets. So.
And it's what was I just going to say? Sorry.
That's okay, Ryan. If you can't remember, it must have been a lie, so I'll let you go. Kathy in Kempville. That's an old line. Kathy in Kempville. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
So I disagree. But I do believe what the one caller said about paying a percentage of the bill if they do end up in the hospital.
Okay. All right.
But I did have two other points to make on this topic. One is I think we forget why this is a problem. And I think a lot of people think that we're just punishing the unvaccinated. When in reality, I worry about the people that are missing cancer surgeries, heart surgeries, things like that. And these are people that are fighting for their life. And the second point I wanted to make was, initially I understood the unvaccinated. I'm fully vaccinated, always been for it, but I understood people's worries that it was new and they were hesitant. It's not new anymore. So I have to try to figure out why they're not doing it. And I think it comes down to you're not the boss of me kind of thing.
Yeah,
and that's not okay.
Yeah. Maybe there is something to that. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you. Yeah, Kathy brings up a point, and several people have raised this already, and I'll put it to you because it was kind of a follow-up question that I wanted to ask you. Premier Legault said yesterday he wants it to be significant, that it would be a significant tax. What would significant be? A token amount, a few $100s? What kind of deterrent would that be, given the real life cost of actual health care? As I said, tens of thousands of dollars to treat someone for COVID-19 in a Canadian hospital, $22,000 to $48,000, depending on whether there's an ICU admission or not. And, if it results in, say, long COVID and the unvaccinated person ends up needing medical care for months, if not years to come, what's the cost of that? A few $100 is hardly going to lessen the burden on society. A few $1,000s, maybe you're in the parking lot of the ballpark. In Singapore, as I reported before, and it's been met with some approval, the unvaccinated pay the whole shooting match. They send you the bill. They send you the bill if you're unvaccinated and end up in a Singapore hospital. The anti-vax tax is in the works. They say they're looking at it right now. Phil in Ottawa. Do you agree or disagree, Phil?
Good morning, sir. No, I'd disagree very strongly.
Okay.
And I believe that the future is going to show very, very fast. We're going to get an update on, when you think about people who've got vaccinations and they do it because it mitigates the severity of the disease. But are they have they been infected multiple times? I know that if you're not vaccinated and you get infected, you're going to go to the hospital right away because you're going to get a strain that's going to put you in the hospital. So that shows me that you get infected once as a non-vaccinated, but these vaccinated people are getting multiple infections and living with the disease. And it's a discussion we have to have, Mr. Snow. And I might be completely wrong in my thinking about the vaccinated are holding a milder form of this disease and passing it to the non-vaccinated, and some of the non-vaccinated are infecting non-vaccinated. But we have to have a discussion and find out how this is moving around. If we allowed hockey players to be isolated for how many months, and out of that, how many people got infected, then there's a flaw in our rationale for isolating people in Toronto under a dome with their own hotel and their own.
Okay, you're kind of wandering all over the place, Phil, and the phones are jammed this morning, so I'm going to move along. But I put you down as totally against it. I got you on that. Ron in Brockville. Ron.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning, Ron. Agree or disagree on this one?
I have to disagree because you've made the point yourself. What about people with type 2, diabetes, and whatnot? But to be, I think we've gone too far. I really.
Oh, we lost him. He got cut off there. And I think I heard like a Siri-like voice in the background there. Kerry, Smith Falls. Kerry, good morning. Agree or disagree, Kerry?
I disagree.
Disagree. Okay. All right. And why is that, Kerry?
I don't believe it is the unvaccinated. We have cruise ships that are 100% vaccinated that had a major break, and they have to spend their time on their cruise in their cabin.
Right.
I don't believe our government is taking this seriously. If you were, you'd ban all travel. You would place military at every bloody exit out of town and city, and you'd stop it for 90 days.
Okay.
They're not helping us.
Right.
And they need to do something. You can't say it's the unvaxxed when you're not doing your part.
Okay, but do you not think that the unvaccinated are putting more of a burden on the healthcare system? Just
they
given,
definitely
just
are.
given
I do
the
agree
math,
with you.
Yeah.
I do agree with you.
You do? Okay. All right. But but you don't believe. You say you don't believe the government, right?
They're trying to stop COVID. They can't stop COVID unless they do their part.
Right. Okay. So they're not going far enough. That if they really wanted to get a handle on it, they'd shut it all down. Like March of 2020. Okay, Kerry. And they need to shut it down. Okay, I don't know if I'd go that far. John. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Rob.
Morning, John. Agree or disagree with taxing the unvaccinated?
Well, if it wasn't so scary, it would be funny.
Okay, all right.
It's sort of like charging a guy with speeding when he doesn't own a car. Like you would be charging somebody for a crime that has not been committed.
Right.
Like the problem is basically it's never been handled right from the get-go. 2 years ago, Trudeau sent 32 metric tons of PPE to China where they make all the PPE. Having trucked 3 million miles, I know PPE, 32 metric tons is about 15 truckloads.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay.
And that was,
right.
It has not got any better since then.
That the problem in the healthcare system right now is not unvaccinated; it's investments in the healthcare system and all the other things that all the other mistakes and screw-ups.
Somebody getting COVID and going to the hospital is the end point.
Right.
It should never get to that.
Should never get to that. Okay.
They should get treatment from their doctor.
Right.
It's a virus. Get an antiviral from your doctor.
Yeah.
It goes away.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? Like it's crazy.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Okay.
Thank you. Crazy.
Okay.
Yep. Fair enough. Darlene in Nepean. Good morning, Darlene.
Good morning, Rob.
Taxing the unvaccinated. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Definitely agree.
You definitely agree. Okay. You're in the minority today.
I don't care.
I know. I'm just telling you.
Yeah. It's just a part of this puzzle that's been moving around, and everything is being tried, from lotteries to you name it, bringing in the military. It's all reactive, or mainly reactive, not proactive. And when one of your callers said, find it in your heart to feel for a family of 6, I believe, of unvaccinated people, it made me think of these people wearing sweatshirts, hugs, not vaccines, and it really made me angry. And it's a big part of the puzzle, and we can't have any more elderly people in retirement homes left alone in their own waste.
Yes.
The military called in.
Yes.
We have to do every freaking thing. And if they can't use their brains, then try their pocketbook.
Okay, hit them in the pocketbook, Darlene says. All right, we'll be right back. Final quarter, Rob Snow Show. Talk back hour. It's a hot one today. Taxing the unvaccinated. This is City News.
On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
All right. We actually received an email. I do have an email address for the show. We don't get a lot of email anymore. The Rob Snow Show at ottawa.citynews.ca. It's a really long one. They couldn't come up with something like snow at City News or something. It's like the Rob, not even the Rob Snow, like the Rob Snow Show at ottawa.citynews.ca. Right? So we have, somebody wrote us, actually.
They did.
What does it say?
Oh. It says a lot of things, but
it sings my praises.
Yeah,
right?
the meat of it is here at the end, right? mRNA is not a vaccine.
It's not a vaccine.
And never will be.
And never will be.
It is a vehicle to introduce the world reset and make yet many more billions for big pharma.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Surely,
oh boy.
Surely, you have read Klaus Schwab's publication on the subject.
Oh, 5 times.
Wake up, Rob.
Wake up. Okay.
I'm very disappointed in you.
I'm sorry to disappoint you.
This is surprising behavior in someone I used to admire. Cheers.
Cheers. Okay. Well, cheers. Cheers to you, too. Okay. All right. I used to admire. That hurts. I feel like I want to go cry in the corner. The anti-vax tax. Agree or disagree with taxing the unvaccinated? Is that Jessica who called before? Let's try that line again. Jessica in Orleans.
Hi.
Much better.
Sorry
Thank you,
about
Jessica.
that.
That's okay. That's okay. Agree or disagree?
I agree. I agree.
You agree. Okay. All right.
Yes, I do have a heart, as I heard one caller say. Have a heart. I think, look, we all pay taxes as Canadians, and we've done our part in the past pre-pandemic. And with having, mental health issues in regarding to alcoholism or being a smoker, but we do pay the taxes for these items, and sometimes you're just too sick. Diabetes, that's different. That's not a burden. The way he chose his words is incorrect, but I think he's on the right track in regarding tax or fee, whatever you want to call it. We need to do our part, and getting vaccinated, it's really easy, and people are just overthinking it. And I'm still alive. I have my 3 vaccines. My family's alive. So many people, we're alive. There's underlying health conditions that get complicated into all the stats. Listen to the science. Do your part.
Okay.
And let's just stop all this silliness right now.
All right.
And stop discriminating. That's it. Just get your vaccine.
But you agree with taxing the unvaccinated, you said, though, Jessica.
Yeah.
You agree with that? Okay. That turns our, and I thank you for your call. It turns our entire approach to how we fund healthcare through our taxes, turns it upside down and around, okay? The taxes that we pay for healthcare, and they're considerable, if you view those as health insurance premium, like an insurance premium, they don't operate like a traditional insurance premium. They just work based on how much money you make. That's how we fund healthcare, right? The more money you make, the more you pay in tax. And we're going to take so much of your tax money and pay and help pay for healthcare. That's not the way a traditional insurance premium works. You know, the more money you make, the more you pay. Even though wealthier people, generally speaking, are healthier people. Wealthier people eat better food. They can afford to buy their medications, or they have a benefits plan that takes care of it. They can afford things like fitness memberships and recreation programs and hire mental health care professionals and on and on and on and on and on. And if you looked at the taxes that they pay for health care and think of it in terms of an insurance premium, you could say it's not fair. They should be paying much less because they're healthier. And the poor should be paying more. Generally speaking, they're more likely to need health care because they can't afford the best food, or they can't afford their medications. They can't afford to join sports teams or gym, fitness programs. They may have emotional problems related to upbringing. Who knows? Whatever, right? But we don't base access to the Canadian healthcare system on things like risk or things like actuarial assumptions, as is the case with a private insurance scheme. The tax man doesn't give you a physical. The tax man doesn't ask you about your family's medical history or about pre-existing conditions, doesn't ask you if you smoke or drink, how long your drive to work is, these kinds of things. The Canada Health Act doesn't, at its heart, is about equal access, whether you're just scraping by on ODSP or you're a billionaire like Galen Weston Jr. The philosophy behind the Canada Health Act is reasonable access to health services without financial or other barriers. It's called insurance, but it doesn't operate like insurance. And this move from Legault is a betrayal of that. And that's my final rant on that right now. Yvonne.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you, sir. Agree or disagree with a tax on the unvaccinated?
Well, no, this is how I look at it.
Okay.
what they should do is they create a COVID tax. Whoever got a vaccine gets a credit.
Okay.
That way, whoever didn't get a vaccine pays the tax.
Right, gotcha. Yeah, okay. So, well, that means you agree with at least taxing the unvaccinated, right?
Taxing but not necessarily taxing.
But not exclusively.
But crediting the people that are doing something.
Sure, and maybe that's next to come. I just, I'm gonna shut up and just take more calls. Dan in Ottawa. Dan.
Rob, so I disagree about this based on just plain old-fashioned government boring data. Right now, I'm just looking at the COVID-19 Ontario website. Right now, as of today, there are 138 unvaccinated people in ICU out of approximately 2,400 beds over the province of Ontario. I don't know what that percentage is, 3%. We can't accommodate these people. That's my rant on that.
Gotcha, sir. Yeah. It's about capacity. Make the investments in the capacity, right? Stop using the unvaccinated as a scapegoat, Dan. Is that your line of thinking there?
That's right. There are right now 20% of ICU beds dedicated for COVID-19 patients, and 22% are still free. There are still 2% more free beds than there are people with COVID in the ICU. We still have capacity.
Yeah, well, we'll see where we are next week because it's climbing and thank you for your call. It climbed in the last week 75%. Hospitalizations up 75% in a week. That's exponential math, right? Louise in Osgood. Louise.
Yes, I'm pro-vaccine to start with, but I'm against this tax. I think it's a bit ridiculous. If they're going to implement it, then it should be a percentage of their money they earn, but most of them, I don't want to call them dummies, but research, scientists dedicate their life to research, and you've got these people that do Google research and they're smarter than the scientists all of a sudden.
Yeah. I call them YouTube certified. They're YouTube certified. Thank you.
And,
right.
As far as forcing them to take something they don't want to get, are we going to start forcing young teenage girls who get pregnant to get an abortion because it's going to cost the society? That's wrong.
Okay, fair enough. Yep. Okay, last call of the hour here. Steve, Ottawa. Steve.
Good morning.
Morning, Steve. Agree or disagree with taxing the unvaccinated?
I disagree, but I believe that this is the tip of the iceberg. If they don't get vaccinated, they will eventually go after disability checks, Ontario Works checks. If you're financially independent, they'll say, fine, then you're not vaccinated, no driver's license for you on your birthday.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You see, there are so many different avenues to kind of get you on. So, be careful. Be very careful.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. All right. Very, very good hour, everyone. So at the end of it, I was keeping track here. Do you agree or disagree with taxing the unvaccinated? We took 5, 10, 15, 21 calls in the hour. My gosh. And it was 16-5. 16 callers disagree, 5 agree. The news coming up. And then we'll turn our attention to something a little less controversial. Back to school next week. That's coming right up. Rob Snow Show, City News.
1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, January 12th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, some light snow, -11. It's -4 in Smiths Falls. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. 505 people are now in intensive care units at Ontario hospitals from COVID-19. 3,448 people altogether are in hospital with the virus. Ontario reporting just under 9,800 more positive cases from tests that have been done. Another 46 people have died from COVID just in the past day. Now, around the region, new cases uncovered by testing, 588 in Ottawa, 115 in Eastern Ontario, 54 in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, 88 more in Renfrew. While the idea has its supporters, placing a financial tax on the unvaccinated has its critics as well. Here's City News reporter Chris Kerry.
Kerry Bowman says the Quebec plan would stoke the flames of division, and the proposal goes beyond the line of what's acceptable and into the realm of punishment. But he understands why the idea is resonating with some.
It's very wise for a politician to side against the unvaccinated these days. People, if you essentially told people to hunt down the unvaccinated with pitchforks and torches, they'd probably go for it at this point. They've been so demonized.
He says a move like this is dangerous, as it says the government will make decisions on your health care based on your behavior. Chris Curry's City News.
City News time 11:03. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
For Ottawa, the Valley, Smiths Falls, today quite a bit of cloud for most areas. Some flurries and a couple of centimeters could accumulate. The high near -1. Tonight, cloudy and -10. And for tomorrow, some flurries for the afternoon, the high -5. For today, gradually getting warmer, will climb to -1.
And right now with some very light snow in Ottawa, -11. It's -4 in Smiths Falls. But the province is facing increasing healthcare strain due to the Omicron wave. The Prime Minister will hold a media briefing to update the nation on COVID efforts. Coming up in about a half an hour, we will carry it live on City News, Ottawa and Smiths Falls. Here's our Parliament Hill reporter, Cormac McSweeney.
The Prime Minister will be joined at this news conference by the Health, Trade and Procurement Ministers, and it comes a couple of days after his call with provincial premiers. Now, provinces are facing major strains to their health systems as a result of the rise of Omicron cases, some canceling surgeries and other appointments as a result. The feds have warned they may not have the human resources needed to meet provincial demands, and the Prime Minister told premiers they may have to strategically deploy doctors and nurses that are available. So far, the federal government has not responded to questions about whether they're considering any similar move to Quebec, which has announced a financial penalty for people who are unvaccinated. The feds have also said they have enough COVID vaccines to give all adults their booster and a fourth dose if necessary. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
The United States has released its inflation number, 7% in December. It cost 7% more in that month than it did 1 year previously. The Canadian inflation rate for December is expected 1 week from today. Now, that 7% jump in December in the United States, the largest increase since 1982. And a judge has given the green light to a lawsuit against Prince Andrew by an American woman who says he sexually abused her when she was 17. A U.S. District Court judge wrote an opinion today that the prince's lawyers failed to successfully challenge the constitutionality of a lawsuit filed against him back in August. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
So as I said, it's the day of news conferences around here today. We have the Prime Minister having a news conference in about 25 minutes from now. It's supposed to start at 11:30, the Prime Minister and the Federal Health Minister. We have 3 o'clock this afternoon, the Mayor of Ottawa, along with the Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Vera Etches, 3 o'clock this afternoon. At 1:30, it's the Education Minister for Ontario, Stephen Lecce, along with the Chief Medical Officer of Health for the province of Ontario, Dr. Kieran Moore. Right now, the Premier of Saskatchewan is having a news conference. Scott Moe is the Premier of Saskatchewan. That's happening right now. A little bit, just a little bit of this.
Removing family livelihoods.
They cause psychological harm by taking away social contact, most particularly for our youth. And they are an infringement on the rights and freedoms that we have come to enjoy and value as Canadians. And that's why they should only be used if absolutely necessary, and only if they can clearly be shown that they are being effective and they are working. And we're not seeing that as being the case today. There are many more things that we can do as individuals in this province and around the world. And I would suggest things that we should do to protect ourselves and to protect those that are around us, those that we love. We're doing those here in Saskatchewan. Individuals across this province are doing this. In fact, there's a couple of areas that really do have an impact on our Omicron populations.
Thank you, David. That's the Premier of Saskatchewan. No lockdowns in Saskatchewan. Meantime, Ontario is reporting today 3,448 people in the hospital with COVID-19, 505 in intensive care. I asked David to look up how many people were in intensive care 1 week ago, and the number 1 week ago was 288. So the number of ICU patients is up 75% in a week. Now, there are people who are in with COVID-19, and there are people who are in for COVID-19. Most people are in for COVID-19 as opposed to with COVID-19. Okay, but those are the numbers for today, and they come ahead of this news conference with the province's Education Minister, Stephen Lecce, and Dr. Kieran Moore, the province's top doctor, about the plan to reopen schools for in-person learning next week. And on that, we are joined now by Stephanie Kirkey, Unit President, OSSTF, District 25. That's the Teachers Bargaining Unit President for the OSSTF, District 25. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Got all that sorted out. Thank you. Hey, thank you so much for taking the time this morning. It's such a busy time for everyone, so I appreciate anyone who can set aside some time for us.
No, thank you. And it does sound like a busy news day.
Yeah. The Education Minister is a little more than 2 hours away from facing the media, and he will be touting the government's plan to reopen schools for in-class learning on Monday, the 17th. What do you want to hear from the Education Minister this afternoon? What do you want to hear?
Well, certainly the news that this was the intention for schools to return in person as of this coming Monday was sort of made public in an odd fashion, mostly via social media on Monday evening. And so I guess the one positive is that we sort of got word early in the week, but it was problematic in the way that it was communicated, in that it was in the evening, and it was there was some confusion around, is this like official, or is this like a leak?
Right.
And so it will be nice to hear it officially. I noticed even on our school board's website, the OCBSD website, the boards, as of yesterday, the boards hadn't received official notice yet either, and so their websites don't reflect that yet, because they're waiting for this official announcement. Right. And so I guess some of the things that I would hope that we hear would be some additional funding for school boards to continue to implement some of the safety measures and the provision of PPE, like the new N95 masks, more HEPA filters, those kinds of things, ventilation improvements for school boards. Certainly that would be helpful. And I guess some of the details. I know certainly there has been some update to the interim guidance for schools and childcare in terms of isolation requirements and that sort of thing. But if there are more specific supports that will be provided to school boards and to schools to make them safer before Monday, that would be helpful to hear as well.
Okay. But on the way this is being communicated from the Education Minister, it sounds like first and foremost you want him to mean it. That when he says schools will return for in-class learning, you want that to be true, first of all, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
Certainly. I mean, we all want schools to return in person. We know that for the vast majority of students, that is that is the way they learn best, and certainly teachers and many educators, that's where we would like to be. The concern is our schools at this point in time, at the time of peak Omicron, as some people are saying, are there enough safety measures in place to allow that to happen and to allow schools to remain open? We do know that it's the off again, on again that we've seen over the last 20-some months has been very stressful for families. It's been stressful for educators. And so we would like to have some assurance that if we're going to go back in person, that the thought and the resources and the supports are there to ensure that we can remain in school.
What's the last week and a little bit been like for your members?
They again are focused on their students, but certainly there is apprehension around the announcements that have been made around the provision of additional HEPA filters and the N95 masks. Will they be in schools in place on time whenever we go back in person? We heard during the school board meeting last night. And I've had a number of meetings and conversations with senior staff and colleagues, and actually we also had a meeting with Ottawa Public Health yesterday around some of the concerns that we have. And so we know CFO Carson indicated that the masks are here. And at this point, for at least the first month or so, we're good for masks for staff, and we've also received some 3-ply masks that we're committed to provide to students. So that's good news. Okay. There's still some questions around the continued provision of those masks going forward. It does sound like the ministry is still looking at figuring out how many, on average, staff should be using per day, and again on a steady supply.
Okay.
Another question is around testing and tracing.
Okay.
And reporting.
Right.
It is concerning for not only for teachers and educators, but I'm also a parent, and I'm hearing from members who are parents as well as just people I know who are parents who are concerned about. I'm not going to know what the situation is.
You want to know if there's a case in your school, you want to know about it, right? Yeah.
Yes, and so we know that the contact tracing has become incredibly difficult with Omicron because it is so widespread. But certainly, so that members can be more alert, and parents and students can be more alert to, okay, I need to be really watching for symptoms now. But now the guidance is that if you have a symptom or you're sick, you are to remain home. And that sounds like prudent advice. But still, it does sort of put everyone on edge a little bit.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time this morning. We'll be listening with great interest to what the minister and Dr. Moore have to say this afternoon. Thank you again, Stephanie Kirkey, for your time.
All right. Thank you, Rob.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Again, that is Stephanie Kirkey, a unit president with the Ontario Secondary School Teachers Federation. District 25, was a teacher at a high school here in Ottawa, but the OSSTF job is full-time, so the president takes a leave from teaching for their term with the union, and that's the Teachers Bargaining Unit, OSSTF. 11:15, when we come back, the latest on Partygate out of the UK, which, gosh, it's not looking good for Bojo. Boris Johnson, the UK Prime Minister, in a whole heap of trouble, apologized. Today, you'll hear a little bit of the House of Commons in the UK. Coming right up, this is City News.
When it came to opening the business, because I was so young, there was a lot that I didn't know about management, financial management, management of people, all around management, I think is the word that I always come back to. I think that I always had a passion, and I knew that I wanted to create a space for people to get their hair done, but I had no idea, even having studied business management, what it really took to open a business as well as sustain a successful business. So in 2014, I was actually working with Angela Sutcliffe. She was my business coach at the time, and she was like, what's your niche? Like, what separates you from other salons. And when we started to really dig, it was the curls. It was the fact that we work with all curl types, curly, kinky, wavy, coily, which is how we identify our curl types. And then you have straight hair as well, of course. But you know, more than 70% of the world has some sort of curl pattern to their hair. And we just realized that that was not being addressed. It wasn't something we learned about in school. So I went to the States and I traveled all over to kind of gain the information that I have now to be able to share it with our clients and as well as with other stylists. So in March when it came, I thought it was gonna last, a week, 2 weeks, I think it started off at 2 weeks. And I was like, cool, I have 2 weeks to just relax, that's fine. So I was actually in a position where I was not happy, so to say, but I was a little bit happy, to be honest, just because of what I was experiencing personally. Now, when that extension started to happen, it was not a great feeling. It was very uncomfortable not knowing how I was going to support myself financially. So I'm so excited about the Academy. It's something that I started and I launched it during the pandemic. So I've been teaching for a number of years. I've been educating for a number of years. I educated at Algonquin. I've educated at Versailles Hair Academy. And I've also educated in my own space, in this space and my old space up on Greenbank. And so it was just a continuum of what, I've been doing for these years. When we have a client in our chair, it's not just about making your hair look great. It's about how do you go home and take what we've just taught you and emulate that. So now with a world where people want to quote unquote be diverse and inclusive, what does that really look like in a salon setting? And for me, it looks like being able to invite any curl type, any hair type really, because I can take care of straight hair types just as well as, I can take care of curls. And we cater to all curl types regardless of what you look like on the outside, we got you.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
So in the UK, the media is consumed with stories about Partygate, which goes back to May of 2020. And the UK, all across the country, was a full-fledged lockdown and all social gatherings were banned. But what has come to light in the last week or so is that there was a garden party at what is known as Number 10, the official residence of the Prime Minister, Number 10 Downing. And today, Prime Minister Boris Johnson came clean, apologized, but said he thought he was at a work function. But still, he was under a lot of fire today during what's known as the PMQs. That's the Prime Minister's questions. This is leading the questioning, the leader of the opposition there, the leader of the Labour Party, Keir Starmer. Let's listen to a little bit of this.
We now come to the leader of the opposition, Keir Starmer.
Well, there we have it. After months of deceit and deception, the pathetic spectacle of a man who's run out of road. His defence that he didn't realise he was at a party. It is so ridiculous that it's actually offensive to the British public. He's finally been forced to admit what everyone knew, that when the whole country was locked down, he was hosting boozy parties in Downing Street. Is he now going to do the decent thing and resign?
Well, Mr. Speaker, it is...
Hancock went.
I think somebody will be going for an early cup of tea as well. Can I just say, the question's been asked. I want to know the answer. Your constituents want to know the answer. I don't need any extra help either. So please, Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the point that he's making about the event that I attended. I want to repeat that I thought it was a work event, and Mr. Speaker, I I regret very much that we did not do things differently that evening, Mr. Speaker, as I've said, and I take responsibility and I apologise, Mr. Speaker. But as for his political point, I don't think that he should preempt the outcome of the inquiry. And he will have a further opportunity, Mr. Speaker, I hope, to question me as soon as possible.
Keir Starmer.
Well, that apology was pretty worthless, wasn't it? Let me tell him why this matters. Yesterday, in this chamber, honourable members told heart-wrenching stories about the sacrifices people across the country were making. This House and the whole country were moved by the honourable member for Strangford as he talked about his mother-in-law dying alone. He was following the rules, whilst the Prime Minister was partying in Downing Street. Is the Prime Minister really so contemptuous of the British public that he thinks he can just ride this out?
Mr. Speaker, I heard the testimony of the honourable member opposite, and I echo his sentiments. It was deeply moving. Nobody who heard that could fail to have been moved. And I know that people up and down the country made huge sacrifices throughout this pandemic, Mr. Speaker, and I understand the anger, the rage that they feel at the thought that people in Downing Street were not following those rules. I regret the way the event I have described was handled. I bitterly regret it and wish that we could have done things differently. And I have and will continue to apologise for what we did. But, Mr. Speaker, he must wait for the inquiry, which will report as soon as possible.
Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, when the Prime Minister's former Health Secretary broke the rules, he resigned. Yes. And the Prime Minister said he was right to do so. When the Prime Minister's spokesperson laughed about the rules being broken, she resigned. And the Prime Minister accepted that resignation. Why does the Prime Minister still think that the rules don't apply to him?
Mr. Speaker, that's not what I've said, and I understand the point that he makes. As I've said, Mr. Speaker, I regret the way things happened on the evening in question, and I apologise. But if I may say to him, I do think it would be better if he waited until the full conclusion of the inquiry, until the full facts are brought before this House, Mr. Speaker, and he will then have an opportunity to put his points again.
This just isn't working, Prime Minister. No. Everyone could see what happened. Exactly. It started with reports of boozy parties in Downing Street during lockdown. The Prime Minister pretended that he had been assured there were no parties. Yeah. How that fits with his defence now, I do not know. Exactly. Then the video landed, blowing the Prime Minister's first defence out of the water. So then he pretended he was sickened and furious about the parties. Now it turns out he was at the parties all along. Can't the Prime Minister see why the British public think he's lying through his teeth?
Prime Minister,
it's almost unparliamentary. That's almost unparliamentary to call somebody a liar.
Order. And I certainly don't need any help from round here. If somebody wants to help me, they can help somewhere else. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it's up to the right honourable gentleman to choose how he conducts himself in this place. And he's wrong. He's wrong. I say to him that he is wrong. He is wrong in what he said he said what he is wrong what he said is wrong in several key respects. But, Mr. Speaker, that does not detract from the basic point that I want to make today, which is that I accept that we should have done things differently on that evening. As I've said to the House, I believe that the events in question were within the guidance and were within the rules, and that was certainly the assumption on which I operated. But can I say to him, Mr. Speaker, that he should wait before he jumps to conclusions, Mr. Speaker. A lawyer should respect the inquiry. I hope that he will wait until the facts are established and brought to this House.
Here's Summa.
Mr. Speaker, so we've got the Prime Minister attending Downing Street parties, a clear breach of the rules. We've got the Prime Minister putting forward a series of ridiculous denials which he knows are untrue. Yes. A clear breach of the ministerial code. That code says ministers who knowingly mislead Parliament will be expected to offer their resignation. The party's over, Prime Minister. The only question is, will the British public kick him out, will his party kick him out, or will he do the decent thing and resign?
Mr. Speaker, I just want to repeat that I think that the right honourable gentleman, I know that it is his objective and he's paid to try to remove me from office, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate that and I accept that. But may I humbly suggest to him that he should wait until the inquiry has concluded. He should study it for himself, and I will certainly respond as appropriate, and I hope that he does. But in the meantime, yes, Mr. Speaker, I certainly wish that things had happened differently on the evening of May the 20th, Mr. Speaker, and I apologise for all the misjudgments that have been made, for which I take, Mr. Speaker, full responsibility.
That's good, David. Isn't that interesting? That's what they call Prime Minister's Questions. It happens every Wednesday at noon, London time, in the House of Commons, where they actually have a functioning House of Commons. They don't have a virtual parliament. And I watched that this morning. It's 7 o'clock our time. I wanted to see, because Boris Johnson's basically been in hiding for most of the week, since this has dominated the UK news. I wanted to watch a little bit of it. There are something like 650 MPs in the British House of Commons. It's around. I'm telling you, they are stuffed into that house, cheek to jowl. They're not going virtual. It's I don't know how safe it is, but it is refreshing to hear parliamentary debate. So the Prime Minister apologized, but that did not stop all the opposition leaders in the House of Commons in the UK today from demanding his resignation. He is in a perilous position. This is the Rob Snow Show, and this is City News.
In Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, January 12th. Good morning. I'm Alex Gouge. Right now in Ottawa, it's minus 11, feeling like minus 18 with the wind chill. And in Smiths Falls, it's minus 4, feeling like minus 8. Here's what's making news this hour. Ontario health officials say a total of 3,448 people have been hospitalized with COVID-19, including 505 people in intensive care units. The province is also confirming 46 more deaths linked to the virus in the past day. Ontario is reporting another 9,800 more positive cases from the tests that have been conducted. A professional group representing Ontario medical laboratory workers say the system is, quote, collapsing amid staffing challenges and high levels of COVID-19 spread. The CEO of the Medical Laboratory Professionals Association of Ontario says 87% of laboratories in the province are short-staffed due to infections on top of already low staffing levels. Michelle Hode says strain everywhere on the health system is putting more pressures on lab professionals. She says the decrease in COVID-19 testing demand due to recent policy changes hasn't made things easier for medical labs because they are trying to catch up on testing for other conditions. Ontario G-level road tests won't require parallel parking or three-point turns for the next few months. A spokeswoman for the Transportation Minister says changes are being made to help reduce a road test backlog caused by COVID-19 restrictions. They say to and from testing locations will be modified to be more direct. The changes will be in effect until at least March 31st. City News Time, 11:32. I'm Alex Gouge. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
We're just awaiting the Prime Minister's news conference, which is on the itinerary today for 11:30. That's usually merely a suggested start time. You may want to tune in sometime around 11:30, and you may see the Prime Minister, but no sight of him yet. And he'll also be joined by some other cabinet ministers, including Jean-Yves Duclos, who is the federal Minister of Health. And last Friday, it was Mr. Duclos who said we may want to have a discussion with the provinces about making vaccination mandatory for everyone. And I'm sure one of the items that the news media will have for Mr. Trudeau today when it comes time for the questions will be his response, his reaction to what Mr. Legault announced yesterday, a tax for the unvaccinated. So while we await the Prime Minister's news conference, let's talk about some city issues. It's been very, very quiet when it comes to city politics. And as a matter of fact, the next city council meeting, I don't think it's till the 24th or the 26th or something like that. It's around there. It's not till the end of the month anyway. Pat Uguccioni joins me. He's the City Hall insider for the Rob Snow Show here on City News, and he joins me now. Great to hear from you. Thanks for coming on.
Good morning. Yeah, thank you.
So news conference day, Pat, and at 3 o'clock this afternoon, Mayor Watson, Ottawa Board of Health Chair and City Councillor Keith Eglai, Dr. Vera Etches, the Medical Officer of Health, Kim Ayot, the General Manager of Emergency and Protective Services. They're all going to be at a municipal briefing, and I'm sure you'll be watching or listening into that. What do you expect to hear from them today?
I don't think we'll hear much new. I think Dr. Etches may sort of weigh into the kids going back to school next week and what we can expect from that. But I think it's just sort of updating us on the the new attempts to get more and more clinics out. That the issue still is they don't have enough people to immunize the amount of people that want. So the more they're trying. They're trying different, thinking outside the box, so to speak, trying to get medical students and whatnot. But more than that, I don't think there's going to be much more in the update today.
Okay. What do you want to know? And you put that news reporter hat on of yours.
I have to say it's personal for me. My father is in a long-term care center, and he's waiting for his booster shot. So I think families that have residents in these long-term care homes and retirement homes would like to hear something about why they haven't all been vaccinated for their third or even fourth doses, and sort of what they're doing to get that done. Because as we know, early on in the pandemic, it was a crisis, and they said it was fixed, but there are obviously some holes they need to fill there.
Okay. We're going to put you on hold right now, Pat, and hopefully connect a little later in this half hour. The Prime Minister is doing his news conference now here in Ottawa. This is Justin Trudeau, live on City News.
Everyone can get fully vaccinated. We continue to bring in doses for any future needs that science and experts will dictate to us. We've advanced 1.8 million doses of Pfizer into January for a total of 6.8 million Pfizer doses in January for Canadians aged 12 and over. So it's really important that everyone get their booster when it's time for you to do so. We have more than 10 million boosters already administered across the country. So if you haven't, please go get your shot. It's never too late to do the right thing. And I can tell you that when you show up to get your very first shot in your local vaccine clinic or your pharmacy, the pharmacists, the healthcare workers will be incredibly pleased to be able to give you your first shot. It is about doing the right thing. They'd much rather be giving you an injection of a vaccine to keep you and everyone safe than having to deal with you in a critical care bed. Please, it's time to get vaccinated. It's time to get your boosters. We notice as well that only about 45% of Canadian kids between 5 and 12 years old have been vaccinated. With schools still virtual, but eventually in many places still virtual and in many places returning soon, we need to make sure that kids are getting vaccinated. Quand je suis parti ce matin,
when I left home this morning to get to this press conference, I went to check on my 3 kids. All 3 of them were in their individual rooms on their computers, on their iPads, doing virtual school. We know that it's going to come to an end soon. We want everyone to be vaccinated. Please encourage your friends, your neighbors to get vaccinated and to make sure their children are also vaccinated.
Vaccines work. They work to protect you. They work to protect the vulnerable people around you. They also work to support our frontline healthcare workers who are in danger of being overwhelmed by this Omicron wave. So we're not just supporting them, we're supporting the people who are at risk of seeing important surgeries and treatments canceled because our health systems are getting overrun. We need to continue to do what we know we can do. That is, stay safe, be careful in your gatherings, in your distancing, wear a mask, and yes, remember to continue to get vaccinated. On that, I want to thank once again our extraordinary frontline health workers and everyone working in public health for the incredible work they've done over the past 2 years. This pandemic is dragging on, and it's exhausting for everyone, but it's particularly difficult for those health workers who have been going flat out for the past 2 years to try and keep everyone safe, to try and get us through this. Please do everything we can to protect them. They deserve not just our thanks, our deepest gratitude, but our support. And that means getting the boosters, getting the vaccinations, getting our kids vaccinated so we can get through this. Je veux aussi parler du soutien.
I'd also like to discuss the support we continue to provide to our companies, to our businesses, to small businesses, and to our workers. The pandemic is not over. We continue to be here for Canadians as we promised from the start of the pandemic. There is support in case of a lockdown. There is the wage subsidy. I'll remind you that the wage subsidy is there to support you in keeping your employees, even if you are at reduced capacity. It's important to maintain that link with your employees. It's important to be able to give the employees an opportunity to continue to pay their rent, to put food on the table. But it's also important to make sure that we can come back as soon as possible, roaring back as soon as this wave is over. A fast recovery is important for the economic well-being of our entire country, so make good use of this wage subsidy. It's there for you. But small businesses also need more flexibility, and that is why today we will be announcing, or we are announcing, that we are extending the deadline to reimburse the emergency business account, the
subsidy. I want to remind employers that the wage subsidy is retroactive. So if you're making decisions right now about whether to keep people on through the coming weeks or not, know that that wage subsidy will be there to help you. We want to be able to have people continue to be tied to their jobs so that we can bounce back quicker once this wave is gone and we start reopening. People need the support to be able to keep food on the table. That's why that wage subsidy and the rent subsidy is there, offered by the federal government, to help you make it through this difficult wave. We're also announcing today that we're extending the Canada Emergency Business Account, the CEBA, for eligible borrowers to the end of 2023. Minister Ng will have more details, but the bottom line is, of course, this. We will continue to be there to have people's backs with as much as it takes, with as long as it takes, until we get through this pandemic. I want to end today by speaking directly to kids once again. I know many of you are in virtual school again. Many of you have made more sacrifices over Christmas, over the holidays, not seeing your friends, not seeing your loved ones, having to hunker down, having to help out around the house as your parents are working virtually. This is not easy. And I know almost half of kids across this country have gotten their vaccine from ages 5 to 12. We need to get more. So please ask your parents if you can get vaccinated. Getting vaccinated protects yourself, protects your family, protects your grandparents, protects vulnerable people.
We're going
but
to
it
stop
also
here. That's the Prime Minister. When we come back, he'll be probably taking questions from members of the press gallery and the media across the country. So that's coming right up. This is the Rob Snow Show live news event, the Prime Minister's news conference here on City News.
pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Again, we continue to follow a live news event. It's the Prime Minister's news conference happening now here in Ottawa, and this is City News.
Starting with the mic to the left.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Good morning, Ministers. Thank you for taking our questions today. On the proposed issue of this tax or fee for the unvaccinated in Quebec, do you think, Prime Minister, this is the right or legal way to approach this problem? And is this something that you would consider looking at implementing federally?
Obviously, like people across the country, we've received that proposal with interest by the Quebec government, but there's a lot more details that we have to hear on how this would work before I can make any comments on it. But I will remind people that we have been clear at the federal level about how important it is to get vaccinated, and we brought in very strong measures to ensure that travelers across the country need to be fully vaccinated. People coming into the country need to be fully vaccinated. That the federal public service needs to be fully vaccinated. These are things that we have continued to move forward on because the best path forward is vaccination, which is why at the federal level, the fact that there is still a debate being brought forward by the Conservative Party saying that we need to be more accommodating of people who choose not to get vaccinated is, I think, exactly the wrong thing. Mr. O'Toole is out to try and protect his own leadership, and he's not thinking about protecting the healthcare workers who are on the front lines. We know very different jurisdictions are making different decisions about how to encourage people to get vaccinated, and as a federal government, we will be continuing to be there to support them in those decisions and to make sure that everyone gets vaccinated.
En français, M. Trudeau, juste la première partie sur la réponse à la proposition de Québec.
Évidemment.
Of course, we're waiting for more further details from the Quebec government on this issue. We are certainly here to continue to encourage people to get vaccinated. We know that in order to get through this pandemic, we will need a maximum number of people vaccinated. That is why we have taken measures to require mandatory vaccination for those who want to travel in the country, those who are public service workers, and we will continue to be there to ensure workers take these measures.
Mr. O'Toole, he says that you're incentivizing and normalizing lockdowns, and by demonizing the unvaccinated, you're pushing them further away from getting the shot. I'm wondering if you can comment a bit more on these allegations, and also whether or not you think that the government and you personally need to take another approach here when it comes to those who clearly, at this point in the pandemic, are not getting the shot.
We've continued to work in many, many different ways to encourage people to get vaccinated, whether it's public information campaigns, whether it's local and peer leadership to encourage people in different languages, in their communities, to get vaccinated. We've continued to put forward strong incentives to be vaccinated. If you want to get on a plane, if you want to get on a train, if you want to travel internationally, these are the kinds of things that encourage people to get vaccinated. And I can tell you that there continue to be people showing up in vaccination clinics to get their first shots, including this week. This is something we will continue to encourage. Quite frankly, on the Conservative side, trying to pretend that rapid testing or testing in general is as good as getting vaccinated is simply irresponsible. Mr. O'Toole is more focused on appeasing the anti-vaxxers within his own caucus than he is on protecting Canadians, and certainly than on supporting frontline workers. If Mr. O'Toole was serious about being a leader to get Canadians through this pandemic, he would start by making sure that all of his MPs get vaccinated.
Abigail Bowman, Global News. Prime Minister, I hear you say that you're waiting for more details from Quebec before weighing in, but you've also highlighted the steps that you have taken federally in terms of unvaccinated people not being allowed to get on a plane or a train. So I'm wondering, how far are you willing to go at the federal level, and are you considering any mechanism of making an unvaccinated person pay for more health care or via tax, just the idea of it?
We've moved forward on some very strong incentives. If someone wants to get on a plane or get on a train, they now have to be vaccinated. There's no way around that. If you want to work for the federal public service, you need to be vaccinated. These are areas that are in control of the federal government, and these are measures that are strong that we've brought in that the Conservative Party, for example, continues to disagree with, but we know that the vast majority of Canadians stand with. I continue to work with health experts to look at how we can encourage more and more people to get vaccinated, to get their boosters, to continue to get their kids vaccinated. But I will highlight that Canada is doing better than most countries around the world in terms of rates of vaccination. Canadians have continued to step up and do the right things, and it is something that I think we can all take pride in. The fact that Canadians have shown so unequivocally, for the most part, that we are there for each other. But I'm happy to turn it over to the Minister of Health, who is, of course, looking at more ways of encouraging Canadians to get vaccinated.
Yes, I agree entirely with what the Prime Minister said. First, we are waiting for details on the measure announced yesterday by the government of Quebec. Second, I exchanged with my colleagues over the last few weeks and just recently with the Quebec minister, and we are all on board when it comes to supporting universality of access to health care across Canada. This being said, we need to remind everyone, as the Prime Minister just said, that vaccination is the way out of this wave and out of the crisis in general. It works. Science has been telling us that for many, many months now, and we have demonstrated at the federal level that vaccine mandates also work. 99% of public servants, almost 99% of public servants at the federal level are either fully vaccinated or soon to be fully vaccinated. Let's remember that just a few months ago, there are some people in Canada, in other parties in particular, that doubted the ability and the willingness of public servants to get vaccinated, to protect themselves and to protect others. 99% have done that. Now, the same thing for RCMP, armed forces. We are mandating vaccination for all workers under federal regulation. That is almost 8% of total workers in Canada. We have, the Prime Minister said, we have mandated vaccination for transport by airplane or by train. We are using all the tools that we have at the federal level, not only to encourage more vaccination, but also to protect people. I would say that the key word here is benevolence. We need to look after each other, and we need to protect everyone from this terrible disease, which can be deadly, and that comes with vaccination.
Prime Minister, on booster rates in a number of provinces remain quite low compared to first and second doses, a number at or close to 30%. I'm wondering, with the information that you're getting, how much that is attributed to just the rollout process versus Canadians who don't, for whatever reason, want to get a booster dose, and if you are considering extending the measures you keep referencing in terms of planes and trains and federal workplace mandates to include a third dose as part of the definition.
Our decisions around vaccine mandates and requirements and what constitutes being fully vaccinated, those will be based on science, will be based on the recommendations of experts going forward. Right now, we continue to encourage Canadians to get their booster shots. Our job at the federal level is to make sure we're procuring enough vaccines so everyone can get the booster shots, can get their kids vaccinated. We have done that. And further, we're working to support provinces that need extra help on getting those boosters into arms. We've seen time and time again how Canadians have stepped up to be there for each other, to do the right thing, to protect their vulnerable loved ones, but also to protect our healthcare workers and our frontline workers. I know Canadians are continuing to do the right things because these booster shots will protect us and make sure that we can get back to the things we love even quicker.
Oui, bonjour, Monsieur Trudeau. Laurence Martin. Laurence Martin from Radio-Canada. I understand you're expecting more details from Quebec, but on the principle, do you agree with the principle that the people that are not vaccinated be paying more for healthcare services? Answer, at the federal level, we have already brought forward measures that are harsh for people that are unvaccinated.
Okay, we're going to leave this now.
The fact that they can...
That's the Prime Minister's news conference. Yes, it is the Prime Minister's news conference, but as we expected, the news reporters have a lot of questions and want to know if the Prime Minister, the member of Papineau, a Quebec MP, whether he supports or opposes the idea from the Premier of Quebec, a tax for the unvaccinated, and he said, we're waiting to see more details. So that's it for the Rob Snow Show for today. Sam LaPrade standing by with the Sam LaPrade Show. Noon news coming up. This is City News.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line. Email us or connect with us on social media.